All right, guys, today we got a special guest. This man has been known around the underground hip hop scene since the 90s, doing battles, getting into fights. You probably have already battled him if you was in the scene back then, you know what I mean? He's the owner of undergroundhiphop.com. I'm talking about the one and only iCON, the Mic King. Shortened now, Mic King, but I don't know. I still got to call you iCON. I don't know why. It just feel right.
It's probably going to be more search volume for iCON than Mic King anyway. But yeah, people still call me iCON. That's fine.
Yo, man, what's good with you, bro?
I'm chilling, man. I'm out here in LA, doing big things with my life.
Yeah, man. I see you've been traveling too, man. That's dope, bro. What happened to the long hair, man? We gonna get the return of the braids or what?
Yeah, I had locks for like 10 years, man. And it was just like, it was time, you know what I mean? And
it was time. Yeah,
I got to that point where it was like, I don't know, I just felt like so much of my life was just like stuck in my hair. And I was like, yo, this has got to go. And that was kind of the moment when my whole life kind of changed too. So I don't need to go back to that.
I feel you on that, man, because, energetically, our hair holds on to a lot, bro. It holds on to a lot. I don't know. I mean, trying to get deep, you know what I'm saying? But
like true. when I first cut it, I would like lay down on like the floor or whatever and expect the padding to be there. And I would just like bang my head on the floor. But yeah, I don't even think my hair will grow that much at this point.
Yo, and it's like so much upkeep. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, right? So, sure. I mean, with you always being on the go businessman now, it's like clean cut. It's like a lot easier to handle. You know what I'm saying? So I feel you, man.
Yeah, man. I got a barber. You know what I mean? Like I go see him, every 10 days or so, and he gets me right. Like it's just a much easier existence.
Got you, man. So let's start at the beginning, bro. You're originally from North Philly, right? And you're growing up in the 80s?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you grow up with any siblings?
Nah, I have a half brother and a half sister, but we never lived together as kids.
Okay, so it was just mainly you and your parents then. That's it.
It was mostly me and my mom. My parents, weren't together for very long.
Got you. Okay. Like around what age did they separate for you?
So yeah, they were together till I was like 5, and then they got back together when I was like 12 to 13.
Oh man. Interesting ages, bro, like for that time period and stuff. Was it normal for you though, like growing up like that in between two different houses and stuff?
So I mostly live with my mom, and then around like that later period we just talked about, I moved in with my dad for a brief amount of time, and then my parents got back together, so I was living with them again, but then they split up again, and it was me and my mom. So yeah, it was mostly my mom.
Got you. So what did your parents do for work when you were growing up?
Yeah, so my parents, they had me like right after they graduated from UPenn. And my dad was in finance and my mom is in healthcare. So my dad, he only worked at like, blue chip companies like Procter and Gamble, Microsoft, Eli Lilly, Adobe, things like that. And my mom has always worked at, big hospitals. Now she works for the Joint Commission.
Damn, so y'all was paid from the beginning, huh?
Nah, we wasn't. So my parents, they, they're the big successes in their respective families, but they had me right when they graduated. So they were still figuring things out until I was in like high school. So yeah, I had both experiences growing up. I had to like living in the hood and then also living in Connecticut and going to a private school. So it was a lot to navigate, but it was also, super valuable for what it is that I do now.
Right. What was the household like as far as like you're full black, right? I gotta ask these days because people identify differently now, so it's a little,
Yeah.
But was it like a real traditional Black household, would you say?
100%. You know what I mean? Like all the tropes you would imagine for that sort of thing, I experienced them for sure.
Got you. So help paint the scene for us, right? You're in North Philly as a kid. You're walking the streets in the 80s, right?
Right.
What are you seeing at that time? What is like your environment like that is shaping you as a person?
Nah, so I wasn't walking the streets like that. You know what I mean? I was a very sheltered kid. Like even though we were in the hood, like I had to get permission to, leave the steps. Like I used to always want to go like around the corner and like, just go be doing shit with my friends. And I'd have to like, if my uncle could take me to go to the rec, like where we would play basketball and all that, then I could go. Otherwise, I wasn't allowed to really go nowhere. So, I seen some things, but like nothing near as much as there was to see. But as an example, I went to school with this kid. His name was Ralph Brooks, and he was a famous story in Philadelphia. In fact, there's a park named after him. Anyway, when he was like really young, I want to say like 7, he got shot by accident in his spinal column, and he'll never walk again, basically. And I remember when they announced to the school like, oh, this kid is coming, and like we all heard this story because it was all over the news, and then everybody was like afraid to talk to him. So I just went up to him. I was like, yo, you're Ralph Brooks, right? Like, and we was just friends. But that's the sort of thing that I grew up around, where it was like, yo, just some random kid could get shot for no reason. So a lot of that was why my parents wanted to get me out of Philly, so I could basically be the Fresh Prince of Connecticut.
Got you. So how would you describe yourself as a child though? Like, were you like quiet, really social, into school, sports, or music, like really early on?
Yeah, I was a really social kid up until I moved to Connecticut. I don't know like when that, like why. Well, I have a sense of why, but like when I look back, I'm like, damn, I was way more extroverted as a little kid than I am now. But I think a lot of it was because I then moved to Connecticut where I knew nobody. And it's like all these kids grew up together. I'm like one of like 5 Black people in the whole town I lived in and shit. So, yeah, I was definitely like a pretty rambunctious kid, young. I was always into sports and all that. Like I played basketball, I played baseball. When I was in Philly, we would play like, king ball, and we play football between 2 like light poles and whatever. So yeah, I always had a lot of friends and everything. But yeah, once I moved to Connecticut, I just felt, kind of the odd man out. And it was always like that. And then I kind of became a bit more introverted. So even to this day, I'm a very introverted person that like kind of presents as an extrovert. So people are always confused, when they meet stage Mike and then off stage Mike, you know what I mean? Because they're like,
Right.
Why aren't you the way you were when I saw you perform? Or why aren't you the way you were when I saw you on stage giving this conference talk? Like, I don't always have something to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew that you were into sports because I've like seen so many interviews, read so many interviews, and there's so many times that you make like sport references, like analogies and stuff like that. And so that's how I knew already. I was like, yo, this dude loves sports.
I mean, I'm into Philly sports. You know what I mean? I couldn't tell you anything about any other team unless they played the Sixers, the Eagles, or the Phillies. You know what I mean?
Right. So what age is it that you moved to Connecticut?
Yeah, it was around that time that my parents got back together. So like 12, 13. And then, I went to high school up there.
When you moved there, was it like a culture shock for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, people up there have their own slang and like so how like now, because of the internet, if you're into certain things, that culture is everywhere. It wasn't like that in like the early 90s and everything. Like there was still a lot more regional versions of culture. And so Connecticut was dramatically different. And like growing up, I also spent a lot of time in New York because my dad is from New York and his family's from there. So like I knew how to navigate New York, and I had, you know, a lot of friends and family out there. Like I used to hang out in Harlem all the time or in the Bronx with my family and all that. And anyway, like Connecticut was a completely new thing, and it was mostly white people, which I didn't really, you know, like I went to a really good public school in Philly. So I had a lot of experiences with mixed cultures and so on, but I still was primarily around Black people all day, every day. You know, when I went home, I was around Black people. Whereas in Connecticut, it just wasn't like that. So it was a big culture, something I needed to acclimate to, basically.
Right. Yeah. So like it was definitely like you stood out now, right? Because
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah, and even if there were other Black kids, they weren't from a city. You know what I mean? I'm from Philadelphia, and they're from, you know, some town I never heard of in Connecticut. And that's not to say that Connecticut doesn't
Your
have
whole
hoods.
swag is different.
Yeah, I mean, Connecticut definitely has hoods, but like it's just a very different thing from what I grew up in.
Right. So in order for you to feel closer to home, to Philly, that's like the time that you really started getting into hip hop, right? And like you got into graffiti and breakdancing and rapping. But ultimately you chose rapping.
Yeah.
You started freestyling like about in 95. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it started because my friend, his name is DJ Trends. He actually is still a DJ for WBLS in New York. Yeah, in New York at this point. And anyway, he was a senior in high school, and I was a freshman. And we used to be on Prodigy. I don't know if you know what that is, but it was like early internet, like AOL, like that sort of shit. And we'd be on there, and I'd be like key styling. And he would be like, yo, this is cool, but I can do this for real in real life. I was like, yeah, me too. I couldn't freestyle at all. So I had to figure that shit out real quick because I didn't want to be called out at school. You know what I mean? So I got pretty good at it really quick.
And it was Method Man's album To Cal that really inspired you to become a rapper, right?
Yeah, that album, I mean, it was the first album that I bought with my own money, and it just blew my mind. You know what I mean? Like obviously the whole Wu-Tang movement was what it was and still is what it is. But at that time, it was like, yo, these dudes are all in the kung fu and these bars are crazy. I mean, I didn't even know what bars were at that point, but I was just like, yo, the stuff he's saying is so crazy. And, you know, again, because I spent so much time in New York, like my uncle was really into Wu-Tang and all this. So by the time I bought this record, I was just like, yeah, I want to do this too. I didn't think I wanted to do it for a living or anything, but I was like, yo, I thought rappers were like magicians, you know what I mean? Because they were doing things that I didn't understand. And I was like, yo, this is just so dope. And so, yeah, Method Man's record just really made me want to give it a shot.
Yeah, man. Back in the day, rappers really were like superheroes to us a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like the way that we viewed them, you know? And it's funny because you actually ended up getting your name, your rap name, because from comics, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So iCON is part of the Milestone Comics universe. And, you know, my first dream was to be a comic book artist, like a cartoonist or whatever. And I used to do it, you know, just like as a hobby growing up. And so my mom was really supportive of all that. She would get me like the books to teach you how to draw and, you know, obviously funding my comic book habit. But then she was like, yo, check out this Black owned superhero universe. And, you know, there was characters like Hardware and Static and iCON, of course. And yeah, that idea, like this iCON guy, he's like the Black Superman, basically. His origin story is effectively the same as Superman's in that, you know, he lands on Earth. he's this alien, but he's like a fully grown adult who lands on Earth, and the escape pod that he gets to Earth or whatever is it just decides to make him a black baby, and so he grows up in like slave era America, and he can't die, so he basically every 50, 80 years is reborn, and so he's like he's his own descendants and all this other shit. Anyway, he was just like a really interesting character, and I was like, yeah, that's me. And then I was like, that's my rap name.
So prior to you going with that rap name, right? Did you have any other names that you came up with?
Nah, I don't think I had a name. I was just like rapping, and then I was like, yeah, I'm iCON, and and the funny thing is, my name is Michael King, and I didn't make that connection until like years later. I was like, oh shit, I'm Mike King. I'll be iCON to Mike King. And, I don't go by that anymore, because after a certain point, it just feels weird having a superhero rap name. Because I'm like, what I mean? When you get to a certain age, you're like, I don't feel right when someone's calling me all these words together. So I just shortened it back in like '09. But like I said, people still call me iCON. That's fine.
That's cool, man. Yeah. And it's really interesting, bro, because like people always say that New York is the home of the spitters, right? But I feel like Philly is also home of the spitters. It's like that real street rap, battle rap is very part of the culture. And you grew up in that, you know what I mean? You ended up going to Howard University, and there was a lot of rappers there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, growing up, I rapped in high school, but I was like the only rapper. So I convinced some of my friends to also rap. So I didn't really know anybody who was better than me. You know what I mean? Like there were rappers in the world that we listened to, but at that age, you're basically emulating everyone you love. Like you haven't really established your own style and all that. So, I felt like I could do anything that the rappers I loved could do. And so when I got to college and like a ton of people rapped, we had a school sponsored MC battle called Verbal Armageddon. And, for the first round, they had everyone kind of like, I don't want to say audition, but like show up, and then we all spit a verse, and then they ranked us based on the verse that we spit. And I got like 14th, and I was like, what? You think there's 13 dudes in here better than me? Are you crazy? And it was kind of a rude awakening for me, because I did great in the first round, but then the second round was like an actual battle, like MC to MC, 3 rounds, and it was during Howard homecoming. And this was 2000. No, it's like 99. It's 99. And Mos Def had just dropped his album. Pharaoh had just dropped his album on Raucous, and they were there. Like they were performing, and I think they were also judging. Like Breeze Everflowing was there, C. Ray's Walls was there. And I battled this dude, good friend of mine named Perfecto, and he murdered me. Like I've never lost a battle this bad since. And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, I got to figure this shit out. Like I got to, because like freestyling is very different from battling. Like, yes, there is freestyle battling, but it's not just about who's dope. It's about who's dope and also shredding this other dude. And I came from the era of like, oh, you just rap good, and then that person raps okay, and then whoever was better won. So I didn't know how to battle yet, but I figured that shit out immediately after that battle. And so that next year, for the school battle, I was ranked 3rd because, they had the champion, who was the guy Perfecto that I lost to. He's ranked 1st, and then whoever was the runner-up is ranked 2nd. So I was ranked 3rd. So I got as high as I could get, and then I won the whole thing that year. So like I'm really into quickly improving. Like I learned fast on shit. But yeah, it was a rude awakening for sure.
Right. So when you say the battling at that time, was it really freestyle or was it written?
So there were guys that would have like full written verses for you, and that's exactly what happened in that battle with Perfecto. Like he was flipping all these con words and all this in the verse, and I was just like, yo, I wasn't ready for this at all. And I think for a lot of people, it was a combination of things, right? Like you would have like some lines that you wanted to say. There are things that you pick up like as you're at the battle. Like when I would walk in a spot for a battle, I would just kind of look around and be like, what are the things that I can use here? And you kind of like, you do have some like premeditated things that you're going to say based on like you walking in the room, but you're not coming in with a fully written verse. And then there's also like rebuttals, right? Like someone says something that you can flip. And again, you're doing this all in real time. So it's still not what people are doing on YouTube now, where it's like they're kind of pen pals and they're like writing like, 10-minute rounds for each other. And then like certain people that you know that you are going to eventually run into, you got to have more than just like random lines for it. I'm not saying I ever had like full verses for somebody, but I might have like 4 bars that I want to say to like, Breeze Ever Flowing if I ever came up in a battle against him. And again, it was still putting it together in real time. So it wasn't like a fully written verse.
Yeah, I feel like the best people are the ones that know how to weave in and out of the freestyle to the writtens, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, even looking at like Black Thought when he did the really long freestyle on Flex, I've heard most of those verses before. He just stitched them together in that very specific way for that time. So I think, yeah, some of the best freestyling dudes are able to like put it all together. And I look at it as it's kind of like windows or tabs on your computer. And you're like, cool, I'm gonna pull this paragraph from this tab, this paragraph from this tab, and then put it together as though it's like an original verse for right then.
Right. So at one point you reach a fork in the road and your dad sits you down to have a conversation. And he's saying you're half-assing school and you're half-assing your rapping. And he's thinking this conversation is going to lead you to school full time, but you end up doing the opposite.
Yeah, I felt like I could only be a rapper until I was 40 and I could go to school at any point. You know what I mean? And I'm one of those like self-taught people. Like I went to school for computer science, but the things that they were teaching me, I already knew, right? Like they were teaching like C++ and Java. Like I was basically just learning math. So I was like, I don't need this as much as other people do. And I just want to go be a rapper.
Yeah, because you started learning how to code like at 12, right?
Yeah. My dad had a laptop that was just laying around. I just started playing with it. And I discovered this programming language called QBasic. And I was just like reading the help files to figure out, how to do it. And then because they saw my interest in that, they started putting me in like, computer camp. I was always going to the bookstore, buying books on code. So, like I said, like I learned quickly and I'm autodidactic, meaning I can just read the joint and then figure it out from there. So a lot of times school would always feel like, can y'all speed this up? You know what I'm saying? And
boring for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's things that I didn't know, obviously, right? Like if I go to a history class, I got to read the books so I can see what's going on. But generally speaking, you teach me something once and then it sticks.
Got you. Yeah, man. So what was your dad's reaction when you ended up doing the opposite?
So my parents were pretty supportive. You know what I mean? Like my dad, he would buy my CDs. There was one time I was on tour. It was the whole like Greyhound bus pass thing where we got caught with fake bus passes. And so we had like 4 more shows left on the tour and he just drove me to the shows. So he was always supportive. They weren't being like, here's a bunch of money to go be a rapper, but they definitely were very supportive.
Right, because your dad was living in Seattle and the shows were in California, right? So at that time, you
Yeah,
called him
yeah.
to ask
So
him to drive you.
exactly. So I flew up to Seattle and then we drove down because we had some shows in like Portland, I mean in Oregon or whatever. And he took me to all those shows. And I mean, my dad, like I say, he's from New York. He's old enough to have been there from when hip hop started. So I think he used to be like, a party promoter at some point. So like he just enjoyed being involved and being able to be like, yo, that's my son up there killing it. So yeah, he was very supportive of all that.
So you dropped out of Howard University.
Mm-hmm.
So like, how many years were you in before you left?
3.5.
So you were about to finish essentially, and you still left.
Maybe. I don't know how many credits I had, but yeah, probably not much longer. There's part of me that wants to just like, take a couple classes up in NYU. And because like the computer science for NYU is right by my crib. Take some classes and then like, go do one more semester at Howard just to get the degree. But I also don't need it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm fine without having graduated college.
Right. But I get what you mean too, though. It's kind of nice also to like have like a ending to that at the same time. So I get both sides of it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you ended up battling Jin like 14 times, right? This is
Yeah.
MC Jin the MC, basically. Tell us about the times that you battled him, like, and how did that come about?
Yeah. So Jen popped up. Let's call it like 2000. There's this battle series for a website called hooked.com. And the first time I saw him, he was battling Minnie Styles. Minnie Styles won because Minnie Styles is incredible. But, it was kind of like, Jen was kind of like a novelty. We didn't know a lot of Asian rappers, and I don't think we knew any other Asian battle rappers at the time. And so there was a lot of talk about him, like, yo, he's so dope, da da da. And then there was a battle in New York called Bragging Rights. And the format of Bragging Rights would be you would be on stage with like 3 other rappers. And each of you would have a minute to spit, and you got to like diss everybody and be better. Problem with that format is that you don't remember who went first. So if you go first, you got to really kill it. And you got to kill it in such a way that you throw the other 3 people off their game. So you got to be like really strategic about this battle. So I entered it. And the first round that I did, I crushed it. Like people were going crazy. They were shouting my name like through other rounds. So I was like, yeah, I'm a, you know what I mean? Cause like it was a battle that only elite rappers on the battle scene won. And so then the next round, Jin is in my round. And on everything I know and believe, I murdered that kid. Murdered him. But the problem is, again, Jin, who I'm not taking anything away from, he's an incredible MC, incredible battler, very accomplished, went further in his rap career than I did. But at that time, there's that novelty aspect of him just being the Asian rapper. So, that like the response to that was bigger. And so he ultimately won. But any rapper that would have been there would have been like, nah, like you murdered this guy. So then it just kept happening over and over where it would be me and him meeting in the battle. Like I'm killing everybody on my side of the bracket. He's killing everybody on his side of the bracket. And then voila, it's me and him again. So that second time we battled, I think it was at Pratt Institute. It's a school in Brooklyn. And yeah, he definitely got me on that one because I have a videotape on that one. And I just wasn't prepared enough. I didn't have like enough to say to him. And, I was just saying like fucked up shit. And then, that's another thing about battling back then. Or I mean, even to this day, right? Like you just say the most fucked up shit. But the shit that I was saying was definitely not cool. Like not shit I want to repeat and have, associated with my name right now. And then
I can assume what was probably said.
Yeah, a bunch of terrible things that you should never say to.
Yeah.
And then the next time that I remember was at Fat Beats, because Fat Beats had a battle or whatever, and he definitely got me that time too. But yeah, that first one, the first time at Bragging Rights, because Bragging Rights was the one battle that I entered that I really, really wanted to win, and I never got the opportunity. And that was the time that I should have won.
So Bragging Rights was basically like when you see a bunch of black dudes dunk and all of a sudden you see the white guy come and dunk after and everybody reacts more because it's the white guy that dunked, right? Basically is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. But those other times, like by the time, he and I were battling those other times, like he was super sharp. Because that first time he came up and he battled Minnie, a lot of people were like, yo, this kid is super nice, even though Minnie crushed him. And so he was just like figuring it out, and he figured it out really quickly. There's only one other time that I think I saw Jin lose in that era. And that was at the Super Bowl battle in Boston, and he battled Esoteric. And that was such a shock because none of us knew that Esoteric knew how to battle. You know what I mean? Like we were always like, oh, that guy, like, you know what I mean? And then we went there. It was like we rolled deep up there from, like the New York scene. Like Pac FM was there, Pumpkinhead, like a bunch of the guys from the scene. And yeah, Eslo just came out swinging and he murdered Jin. And I was just like, what? Like I was completely assured that Jin was going to kill this man, and it did not happen.
Wow. So wait, you battled him 3 total times, or you battled him more? You can't recall all of them.
Yeah, I can't remember all the other ones, but it's definitely those 3 times that are clear in my memory.
And this is all pre 106 in Park, right, for him?
Yeah, in fact, with 106 in Park, he was supposed to go on tour with us. It was the first tour that I ever did. It was me, Poison Pen, my guy Quote, my guy Manifest, DJ Q2, and Jin was supposed to be like co-headliner or something. Cause like a lot of people, it was a bunch of us battle rappers going on tour. And the 106 in Park thing started in the middle of that tour, so he didn't end up coming. But yeah, like I said, much continued success to him because I know he's still out there doing things. He's doing like comedy now too. So I fucked with Jin. Like I love what he was able to accomplish. I just don't like that he beat me at Bragging Rights.
Oh, wait. But can you recall the Esoteric battle though? Like how bad was it? It was really bad.
Yeah, it's the worst I've ever seen him lose. And again, I didn't see him lose. I think I only saw him lose those 2 times. When he battled Minnie and when he battled Eso. And again, like if you watch the tapes, because at that battle it was like, Apathy was in it. ADM was in it. ADM is who I lost to. Again, there's a bunch of people. Pumpkinhead was in it, but pretty much the people that I thought were gonna do well at that battle did not, and the people that I didn't think did really well. So yeah, it was shocking.
Man, I know like it must be so tough. Like as a MC, like you always want to be like the best. Obviously, like nobody wants to be a rapper and not think that they're the best, right? So like losing is like one of the worst things.
Yeah. I mean, I don't do well with losing in general, right? Like there was one time we had this battle that was a bunch of the schools in the DC area. So we had University of Maryland, College Park, where at the time, Peter Rosenberg from Hot 97, he went to that school and he was like organizing events and whatever. We had Howard, obviously, and then it was American University. And this event was at American University. and I'm up there.
Wait.
I'm murdering.
You knew Peter before he became Peter?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know him well. Like I met him a couple
Oh,
times
okay.
on the campus at University of Maryland. And some of my guys from over there, this guy named C's Mikes, who was also an MC, he battled a lot. K Chromosome, like they know or they knew Peter really well. But yeah, he organized the battle at UMDCP at that point. But anyway, we were at American University and I killed this kid. His name is Born Infinite. He's still doing things too. Shout out to him. He's dope. But I definitely killed him. And because it was at their school and it was crowd judged and it was mostly their crowd, he won. And I go backstage where they had like all this great catering for us and everything. And they had this giant plate of cookies. And I picked that shit up and I threw it against the wall because I just cannot handle losing like that. I've gotten better as I've aged, but I definitely had some anger management issues as it related to losing.
Did you battle any other well-known rappers?
I battle a lot of people. There's a guy named Ham. He was like unsigned hype. And this is another situation where I clearly should have won. It was me and him in the finals for this battle that like BET had sponsored. And, they had judges, like RZA was one of the judges. And I was just killing everybody. And then it became clear that like this guy had recently been signed and they were using this as like a promo thing. So they didn't want me to win.
Oh, man.
And I'm sitting there looking at RZA because obviously, I look up to Wu-Tang and everything. And I'm just like, yo, save me. Like, what are we doing? And yeah, nobody can. I don't know. I can't remember who else I've battled that might be considered famous, but I've battled a lot of people.
Yeah, I know. Like most of the stuff that comes up with your name are battles on YouTube. Like when you look up your name, like a lot of it's battles.
Yeah, most of the battles that I did never made it to YouTube, right? Like, so Minnie Styles, who I mentioned, who was another one of those guys in that era that was super elite. I battled him. I won. I don't know. I can't think of much else right now, but there's a lot of guys from that era. But I never battled like, people like Tone Deaf or Pac FM, like those guys that are kind of emblematic of that era as well. But they're good friends. But yeah, we never battled. I think me and No Can Do battled once. But we was just like fucking around. It wasn't like an official battle. So I don't know. I know a lot of those like West Coast kids and we end up in ciphers and then battling and shit, but I can't remember.
Got you. Did you ever do like Fight Club or Smack DVD or any of those things?
Nah, because like around that time it was separated. Like the street battle rap didn't really overlap with what we did. Like when those guys like Shells and all those guys would like pop up, like when he battled Idea and everything, it was just such a one-sided thing that I think they were just all kind of sticking to their thing. And it wasn't until, it wasn't until people like Math and all those other guys started crossing over with people like Ilmac and Thesaurus and all that. So I think it wasn't until, the last like Scribble Jam or whatever, until that stuff started to like overlap.
I'm real close to RJ Payne, formerly known as Rain Man, right? And back in the early 2000s, you had MTV hosting the battle rap competition and then making the band and everything. Did you ever want to go do something like that or try out for something?
Yeah. So there was one that MTV hosted and I went up there and there was like thousands of people waiting in line. And then for whatever reason, it never happened that day. But I think they then did it again and I just couldn't make it back for them because I was still in school. Like I went up to New York from school just to enter this thing. But yeah, other than that, I never tried out for any of the bigger things. Because also around that time, I was like, yeah, I want to really focus on making music and touring and all that. because, we didn't have as many avenues to make money from battling, right? Like there was a battle I entered. It was called Brainstorm 2. And the grand prize was like $3,000. And that was like the biggest shit anyone had ever heard of. So I flew out to Seattle to do that, got second place. But beyond that, there weren't a lot of like places where you made a lot of money from it. Like even when in bragging rights, I think the most you got was like $500 or something like that. So it wasn't really a sustainable thing to keep doing until the whole YouTube era came around.
Right. The underground hip hop scene in those early days, man, it's like something different, right? Like, can you help describe what it was like during that time for those that weren't there to witness it firsthand?
I mean, it very much was a scene, right? Like it was regional, of course, but you had to kind of coalesce it on the internet. And there was so many people doing interesting things. It was like the next generation after the whole Raucous era, like all these people that were raised on like, Wu-Tang and Company Flow, like me, who are like, all right, boom, I can like go out there and put my records out and I could have a fan base and whatever. And, there were the cornerstones of it, right? Like on the West Coast, you had Hyro, Living Legends, and all them. In the Midwest, you had Rhyme Sayers, you had the Mole Men and all that. And then, East Coast, obviously, you had like Brick Records in Boston. You had Def Jux in New York. You had, Jedi and them in Philly. And then there was like just all sorts of stuff, right? Because you had, the overlap with the Roots and Black Lily and that sort of thing. So like kind of like the neo soul thing kind of mixed in. And, Detroit obviously had Dilla and Elzhi and all these sorts of people. And then you had people that like made it out, like Eminem, who were representatives of what we were all doing and everything. So it was a really exciting time because, the internet was becoming more of a thing and you could get things a lot easier. And at the same time, you still had a lot of like traditional media that was still covering it. So, you had magazines like Hip Hop Connection and, I can't remember all the names that like Insomniac and all these sorts of things. And then you also had a bunch of record stores. So like UGHH, hiphopsite.com, all these various things. And so it really created a scene. And so, if you weren't at a show, you weren't at an open mic or a battle or something, you were online on the message boards, like connected with other people across the world and all this. And, not even to mention all the stuff that was happening overseas, right? Like you could go to a random city in Europe, play a show, no one knows you, but it could be like 500 people there. So all of it was super exciting. And that's not to say that things today aren't exciting. They're exciting in a different way, but it was really cool to be able to be a part of the stuff that like I was listening to in high school. Like we was bumping that Lyricist Lounge, that Co-Flow and all that sort of shit. And then to be able to like go into these spaces and do the same shit and be accepted, it was a whole lot of fun, man.
Mm-hmm. Was there a reason why you never went to like Scribble Jam or like the World Rap Championships and stuff like that?
I think the World Rap Championships or whatever was done by the time I was old enough. I think the last one might have been like 98 or whatever. But Scribble Jam, I did go. I competed in Scribble Jam twice, I think. I could never figure that crowd out. I think East Coast battle rappers struggled with that crowd. And I don't know why. Like, I don't know what it was that they didn't like about how we did it. But it seemed like Midwestern rappers got a lot more love. And then also the West Coast freestyle rappers. So like people like No Can, Thesaurus, Ilmac, and so on. But yeah, for me, I was never able to really go far in that battle.
Gotcha. So originally I wasn't gonna ask you about this, but then I saw fans commenting about it. So I figured, fuck it, right? You and Vinnie Paz had some beef in the past. Can you tell us in chronological order how things happened Because I know there was a few events, and the situation with the name and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it technically starts in a place that's actually kind of funny. So I was like 17 and I went to this open mic in Philly that Rich Medina used to host. It was at Footwork, which was his store. And, like I was barely old enough to get in. And in fact, my mom took me because she was like, I'm not letting you go to this thing by yourself. And, I think she just like waited outside for me, like, or whatever. And I remember, Vinny, he came through and he was just like dapping up everybody. Like he even dapped up me. I had never met him before. And in fact, when I first heard of Jedi Mind Tricks, because there was so much like misinformation because the internet was so new and, like you come across these little clips about things. I thought they were from Canada. Like I had no idea they were from Philly. And again, I was young, like I wasn't living in Philly at that time. So I wasn't, plugged in yet. So, I'm at this open mic, put my name on the list, and they announced me. They're like, yeah, Rich Medina's like iCON, the Mic King. And then everybody's laughing because they think it's Vinny joking. But then I go up and I kick my little raps or whatever. And then everybody's like, wait, what? Like, what the fuck was that? Right. So then, that's that. But then over time, as I'm older and I'm starting to like get more involved in the scene, there's this kid named Diggs Darklighter. He was part of a group or crew called Arrakis Records, like Dune or whatever. And anyway, at this point, like I had been making a name for myself, battling and so on. And Diggs invited me to come to this show in Philly to battle Vinny for the name. I'm like, cool, whatever, sure, let's do it. And so I roll up there from DC with a few of my friends. And I get to the show. I'm just like chilling, vibing, whatever. And I guess this was like the release party for Violent by Design. And so like a bunch of those like Boston guys were there, like Virtuoso and Esso and all those guys. And anyway, at one point, I think Stoop comes up to me. He's like, yo, let's go outside and talk. I'm like, cool, whatever. You know what I mean? And then there's this other kid. He was kind of like a bigger version of Vinnie Paz. His name was Cyclone. He just like comes and starts like barking on me. And he's like, yeah, how you call? He was like, how you gonna name yourself same name as the God? Like talking about Vinny. And he was like, yeah, you calling yourself iCON is like me calling myself Cool G Rap. And I'm just like, no, it's not at all. And here's the thing. I'm a very disrespectful person. So I'm definitely like rolling my eyes at this point. And also at this point, Vinny is there too. And they're like both kind of like bouncing off of each other, trying to like come at me. And I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. You know what I mean? And so next thing I know, Vinny sucker punched me and then ran back into the club. And I'm like confused, like what happened? And then they don't let me back in the club.
Wait. Let me ask a clarifying question. Okay. So he punches you once or twice? Because some people have said it was like 2 times.
No,
once. Okay.
2 P's. No, he punched me once and he ran back into the club. And again, I'm confused. They won't let me back in the club. Like I'm unclear on what happened. You know what I mean? So then I realized I got socked and I'm like, all right, now I'm mad. Like, let me up in here. And again, they don't let me back in there. So that was pretty much that, you know what I mean? And then of course that makes it to the internet and all that. Oh wait, no, hold on. I think one part that I'm missing here is I probably talk shit about him on the internet before this, like probably on, like the UGHH message boards or something. Not like, oh, fuck that dude or something like that. Probably somebody brought him up because I posted something and they were like, you're not iCON, this is iCON. And I probably talked some shit, from that, right? And the thing is, all those guys were on UGHH message board. Like a lot of them were posting under different names or whatever. And so he saw it, I think, because I think that was one of the things that came up when they were yelling at me, like, "Oh, who do you think you are to be saying shit?" or some shit like that. Anyway, so that happened. And then, it's all over the internet. And that story, as you can see, has continued to follow me for 25 years. But it wasn't.
Wait. So were you, do you think that he was not aware that someone had invited you to battle him? Like it wasn't a real setup thing?
I don't know. Like I can't really speculate on that. Like, I don't know what the relationship was between him and Diggs and whatever. All I know is that Diggs invited me. I came to battle and I got socked. And that was that. You know what I mean? So I'm sure I thought I was set up at that point, but I don't know that, like anybody was on it like that back then. Like, why was I such a big deal? You know what I mean? Like I didn't have records out. I was just a kid that, who called himself iCON, who could rap good. So I don't know I don't know if that was a setup or not. Ultimately though, like it doesn't even matter.
What was your reaction though when you saw it explode on the internet? Like how crazy was it at that time?
So, I mean, it didn't explode on the internet. It was just the sort of thing that someone would try to like bring up whenever they were trying to shit on me. You know what I mean?
Got you.
And also it helped support what they were trying to be. You know what I mean? Because like Vinnie was like a space rapper before all this shit. You know what I mean? Like I don't even know the whole title to that first record they put out. And then he was like shifting to being more kind of like a street sort of thing. So it really helped with that narrative that like they make hard music and all that. And that's fine. At the end of the day, it's just like a little bullshit, not even true fist fight. Like it's not something to really be talking about 25 years later.
So what ends up happening after that situation? I'm sorry, I had to ask you clarifying questions, but you were about to go into something else.
No doubt. I mean, like over the years, again, it was something that it definitely created issues, right? Because like on the East Coast, aside from like Def Jux and all that, for underground rap, it was those guys, right? So I would often run into them, not like physically, but like it would be like, oh, I'm in this place doing this thing, they've got a show or some shit like that. Oh wait, I also met Esoteric before that too. So there was a show in Maryland that I hosted that he was performing at, and I remember I was at Soundcheck. It was me and him, and we were freestyling. And he was like, "Yeah, the real iCON is from Philly," and I'm like, "What?" But anyway, so yeah, I think that there was something to do with that too. I just don't remember clearly. Anyway, yeah, over the years. So like as an example, I knew Apathy from when I was like 17, because we used to both be on something called Internet Relay Chat, or IRC. And there was like a channel, like a chat channel to talk about rap. And I had met him through that. And I think we had talked on the phone a couple times. And he would always tell me about like how he was going to New York and he was he was like friends with, Punchline and Wordsworth and all these guys. And yeah, I don't know. I just knew him then. And I think he had, from that early time, he was like, yeah, you should just go by Mike King. And I was like, nah, you don't tell me what to do. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think I knew Apathy first. And like, again, I'd never like met him in person, but I had met him online a long time ago. So I was always kind of like around that crew to some degree. And over time, I mean, it didn't really matter because like I had my crew, I was doing my thing. But then there was always people like, well, what's going on with you and Vinnie? And then what ultimately ended up happening there is I made this T-shirt that I was selling at Scribble Jam actually, and it had Butterbean on it, and it said I sucker punch iCON the mic in. And I happened to be walking down South Street with a friend of mine, my guy Brandon Young. I have to say who he is so people can like look it up and understand what I mean when I tell this story. So Brandon was on The Wire. He was in like the last season. I can't remember the name of the character.
He played Omar's boyfriend.
No, not at all. No. He was a reporter. He's a reporter.
Oh, okay, wait.
Yeah, light-skinned black dude, skinny. And anyway, I bring that up to say like,
that Brandon. Sorry, the other one was a different one. Yeah. Okay, so I know which one you're talking about now. Yeah.
So I bring that up to explain that he and I were both two skinny dudes walking down South Street, and I think we got to like 7th and South, and I saw Vinnie standing outside. This is the first time I had seen him since the sucker punch, and I got these shirts and I walk over to him. I'm like, yo, you want a shirt? He's like, nah. And so I kind of just laugh and keep walking. And so I think I went to the record store to like try to sell some merch or whatever. But there was a party up on 7th and South a little later. So I stayed around or whatever. And then I went to the party. I walk in the party and it's like Vinnie and all his people. And I'm like, well, shit. And so, I get a drink. I'm like, well, if I'm about to get rolled on, at least let me have a drink and like get loose or whatever. And I sit down, and the boy King Size comes over to me, and he's like, yo, my man said you ran up on him with mad dudes. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's me and one other skinny person. Like, what are you talking about? And I didn't run up on him. I asked him if he wanted a shirt. So anyway, King Size is talking to me for like 20 minutes. And I don't even remember what he was talking about, but I was like, where is this going? So then I see someone that I know, and she just happens to be sitting next to Vinnie at the bar. So I sit down next to her and I just start talking. And Vinnie's like, yo, you want a drink? I'm like, what? You want a drink? And so the night turns into us just like all drinking and getting fucked up and like piecing it up. You know what I mean? Like, after that party was over, I went back with them to somebody's house, and we chilling all night. And then Vinnie drives me home. He drove a Saturn back then or whatever. And I remember he gave me his email address, and he was like, yo, I'm not one of those dudes that like forgets how he's feeling when he's drunk. And he's like, yo, we should do a song. I'm like, cool, that sounds great. And then of course I sent him an email and never heard back. And that was kind of that. And like, I don't feel no kind of way about this. It's just like such a strange story from beginning to end. You know what I mean? Like that, did that really need to be you punching me and running? And did that need to be like us being like, yo, we're going to be best friends and make music together? Like, nah, we could have just, you could have just been like, yo, I don't like the fact that your name is this. And like, I'm the one that's more popping. You should probably just change your name. Obviously I would have not done that, but like, you gotta sock me and run. And then we also don't have to do music together. You know what I mean? Like, I'm fine where I'm at. You're doing what you do. You're very successful at what you do. Like, it don't gotta be more than that. So yeah, it was just a really, it was just a very weird series of circumstances.
So when you went up to him offering him the shirt, were you trying to like agitate him or something like that? Like, or you was really like genuinely trying to give him a shirt?
Son, I'm an asshole. Like, what do you want?
Fancy.
You know what I mean? Like, first of all, I'm an asshole straight off top. Second of all, I run into the guy that like created this reputation for me for a number of years that has like, been an annoyance for me. Of course I'm going to say, do you want a shirt? Like, the fuck else I'm going to do? Cross the street and keep walking? No. So, yeah, it was just a funny thing to do.
What was his aura, though? He just said, nah. But he seemed really upset?
I mean, he wasn't upset, but like, he was also just by himself standing outside. And I'm sure he didn't expect to run into me that day in the same way that I didn't expect to run into him. You know what I mean? Like I don't know him personally, so I don't know, if he's someone who's like always looking to fight, or if he's just someone who was, hyped up because it was his release party and his homie was around him and all that other shit. I don't know. All I know is that in that moment, I was like, yo, you want a shirt? And I enjoyed doing that.
Wait, but aren't you leaving out the fact? Didn't you drop a diss track though?
I did make a diss record, yeah. Yeah, so there was a mixtape that the Stronghold dudes was putting together, and Poison Pen asked me to jump on it. And this was like, maybe a week or two after that happened, and I was pissed. You know what I mean? Like, because again, it was this, it was this big story and all this other shit. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna say something. And I rhymed over one of their beats. I don't even remember which one it was. And so Penn was like, I can't put this on a mixtape. So I just threw it out on the internet. And that was that.
Because Vinny did do an interview with the Vermont Cynic, and he was asked about your guys' situation, right? And he said that they asked him, I heard iCON the Mic King open for y'all in New Haven. In the past, y'all had beef. What's the likelihood of an iCON and Vinnie Paz song in the future? He said, I didn't do a show with him, but I bumped into him at a bar and we had a mutual friend. We had some beef and I was like, I run with a bunch of goons on some thugged out shit. So we need to squash this. We squashed the beef and we're going to do a song together. That's some shit that's going to happen.
Oh, he said that?
But you're saying.
So hold on. First of all, I remember when this came out, it was like a couple of days after I opened for them in Connecticut. That is 100% true that I did. And it was at the spot called Toad's Place where I used to open like all the shows. And so we opened it, show was great. And I think that article came out like 2 days later because they had shows in Vermont later. I've completely forgot that he said that he wanted to do a song in that interview. But obviously that never happened.
So after you send him the email and you don't hear back, what is your response from then?
Nothing. I have no ill will against the guy to this day. You know what I mean? Like I don't have anything. And when he didn't respond, I was like, it makes sense, right? Like we are not actual friends, you know what I'm saying? So like when he didn't hit me back, I wasn't surprised. And I just appreciated we had that moment. And I don't mean that on some like corny shit, but I appreciated that we were able to squash it for whatever reasons. He definitely didn't say to me, like, I run with some thugged out guys. He literally just said, do you want to drink? And then we just like, were hanging out the rest of that night, just having like a party. So, yeah, I mean, the framing on that interview is kind of strange, but cause like I literally did a show and then he said I didn't do the show. But again, I have no ill will against the guy. I'm happy that, they were successful in the way that they were. I saw in my feed that he's like designing sneakers now. I think that shit is cool. But yeah, I don't feel any kind of way.
But you've never, like, both of you guys have never really addressed this situation like on a public platform like this before, right? Because I couldn't really find you talking about it.
He hasn't had to, right? Like people ask me all the time, you know what I mean? And obviously I haven't spoken about this in years because I wasn't really active in years. But, there's also just like when you grow up and you kind of recontextualize these things, you understand a bit more the challenges that people go through. Because, we're like all these young kids trying to make it in this fucking cutthroat industry. And, there's also this aspect of like, I gotta be hard and I gotta be the coolest and all this other shit. And for him, that was an opportunity, right? To like prove he was the person that he was on these records. So I get it. But I also, that was 25 years ago.
But you ended up working with Just Allah as well, right? Like,
for sure.
So, but that was around the time that he had left Jedi Mind Tricks, wasn't it?
Yeah. So what happened there was an interview published with Just where he was just talking about all those guys. And so I reached out to him. I was like, yo, seems like you didn't have a good experience either. And Justin and I would just like start to hang out. He was living in South Jersey. I was back in Philly most of the time. And so we would just go, to the club. Like there's a spot called Fluid where they would throw this party called Tasty Treats, and we just go hang out. And then eventually, I started helping him get shows and things like that. And then eventually we did a song called Black Arts. And yeah, he was like, he wasn't really fucking with them. And he and I got along. And so it just kind of made sense. Like I could book him shows and we could do things in the States when he didn't have like management or anything like that. And yeah, we had some great times.
And there's footage of you guys also performing on stage together too.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's possible that Vinnie might have felt a way that you were cool with him during that time that he had left Jedi Mind Tricks after Just was just saying some stuff?
I can't speculate. Yeah, I can't speculate on how Vinnie was feeling at that time. But, that was definitely us both leaning into that as the opportunity, right? Like people hearing that Justin and I were working together was like, oh shit, that's crazy. You know what I mean? And so that helped us get the shows and things like that. And then at some point he went back over there and we didn't talk about it or anything. And I was just like, okay. Like, was our friendship real? You know what I mean? Or was it just completely opportunistic? And again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I wasn't also being opportunistic at the time, because I certainly was. But, I thought that me and Just had like a really good relationship too. And, Just and I have worked together again in the last few years, because he hit me. He was telling me about how his house burnt down and all this. And I was like, boom, no, say less. Like, let's do a project. And I worked with him to put together I can't remember the names of the record. Was it like Forces of Nature? I don't know, something. It was an EP. So I executive produced it. I jumped on one of the records. I helped him put it together. I just helped him get a product so that he could start doing shows again and get some revenue and all that. So I still have a great relationship with Just. But, like, again, that was a time in our life where we're all just trying to figure it out.
Right. So you have spoken about this publicly before, but it's just like people still want to know and keep asking about it.
Yeah, to some degree, but I mean, it was in like text interviews. It was never like video. Like, no one's
so
ever
not
seen,
like on camera like this.
Yeah, no one's ever seen.
Got you. Okay.
My experience of it, and it's just one of those things that's going to be one of those like stories that persists in this space, which is fine because we need our lore or whatever. But it was such a small thing that was made into such a bigger thing. I think the same is true with copyright too. Like that was like a 30-second fight.
Right. We're going to get into that. Hold on. We're going to get into that. But the main reason why I asked you was because, like, it's funny because in the comments of the copyright clip, people are like, isn't this the same guy that got two-pieced by Vinnie Paz? And like, I was like, oh, see, like people are still bringing it up like that. And then when you don't take control of the narrative or address it.
Right. Yeah. But there was no like, there's no evidence of that. You know what I mean? Like this is before phones and things like that. So the story is whatever people make it to be, you know what I mean? And we never squared up. Like it wasn't a fight. He punched me and ran, you know what I mean? So, and again, that's why it's not that big a deal. Like it's not like we had a whole rumble and like, you know what I mean? It wasn't that at all.
Nobody got killed.
Right. And then like, it was just kind of this Cold War between me and him for several years, and then that was that. You know what I mean? It's not like the amount of time we've just spent talking about it is more than it was worth to think about. You know what I mean? Got you.
Well, Vinnie, if you watch this, man, please don't be mad like Cage and Gore-Tex and get mad at the interviewer for asking about a situation. I didn't shit on you. I'm just getting clarity.
I just want to be 100% clear. I have no problem with Vinnie Paz. Like again, I'm happy for his
Exactly.
success. So, he could call me and we could just talk about it. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. And I think that would be dope for the fans too, man, but it's an actual thing. I'm not saying Vinny's going to get mad, but there are people that get mad when they're asked about, someone speaks on them and they get mad at the interviewer instead of getting mad at the actual person that says the stuff. So like that's like the situation that I'm kind of in with Cage and Gore-Tex. Because people spoke about them on my channel and then they got mad and now they won't do the interview or something like that. But it's like,
That's
I don't
silly.
know, bro. Like, are we supposed to be not men and have like real conversations and stuff like that? It's like the whole time you and I are talking, it's not like I'm shitting on Vinny or in those clips that Cage was brought up or Gore-Tex was brought up. It's not like I shit on them either, but these are questions that fans want to know, right? The underground, they covet. It's not like they wait for the algorithm to suggest things. They are like people that steady search for this type of content. You know what I mean? They're
sure.
dedicated fans. You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy to me, man. Like I feel like people should, take control of their narrative and address things. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man. But shout out to everybody, man. I don't got problems with nobody. I mean, I find it funny because it's like, are we supposed to go back to like the radio interview days where we just talk about your project, don't ask you the questions we really want to know the answers to, and then like go on with our lives like not having clarity on any situation? I mean, that's what the best thing I feel like is about podcasts now is that you can really get people to tell you what you really want to know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so many stories, right? Like I think, especially from that generation that I come from, there's so many stories that I think need to be told. And I love that, there's so many podcasts where people are doing the research and asking the real questions. Because when I used to get interviewed, I'd be like, why are you asking me, like why I rap? Like ask me things that haven't been asked before.
Bro,
you know what I mean?
I just read one of the old interviews where you were asked about like hip hop journalism and you're like, I want somebody to really do the research and ask me about my lyrics or something like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you're not interested in the interview, then why even interview me?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it makes no sense.
And, I still feel that way, but at the same time, like any coverage, you gotta be thankful for it. So I think me communicating that was not a great idea at the time. But if it yields people doing the research, then fuck yeah.
But you actually said something in that part because you were like, if I'm going to interview someone, if I did interviews, I'd be looking up everything about them that I possibly can. And I respected that because I try to be as thorough as possible in my research, right? Because like if you look like, even like in earlier parts, it's like I knew things before you even said it. And I think that's important. You know what I mean? Like you should be able to help guide the conversation to help the person tell it the best way they can.
Yeah, man, I would have been on some straight up Nardwuar shit if I did that stuff.
Yeah, man. But shout out to Vinnie Paz, man. He's good friends with my brother Big Lou. So, it would be dope to see him and you guys have a great conversation and everything, especially with you owning underground hip hop and everything. It would be cool, man.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
Yeah. So in 2004, you released the Intricate Spectrum EP, right? What made you name it this? Because the album cover is like a different spectrum of colors and everything. And it kind of seems fitting towards your personality because like you always seemed a little different growing up, like from the way that you describe yourself. Like you was like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in a lot of different things. And so with that EP, I haven't heard it in a long time, but I remember thinking like, I want to showcase a bunch of different types of things, right? So like I had like a bounce record on there. I don't remember everything that was on there, but it was really about like, I'm going to showcase a lot of different stuff. And so the idea was just to show like, hey, I have all these different styles and not just like rhyme styles, but also styles of music that I like doing as well. and also wanted it to be like a cohesive package. So that's what that whole idea was about.
I feel like in those days, man, it seemed like you were working on so many different projects at one time.
Story of my
It
life.
was like, yeah, I was like, when I read the interviews, you're like, yeah, you know, you got robots with hearts that we got 11 songs for. And then, you know, I just did 30 songs for my personal project. And then like, I'm over here doing this. And I'm just like, damn, man. He's like, did you have a hard time like finding just like one thing to focus on at a time? Or like do you regret doing so much at one time?
So I still have that problem, like in my business life now, right? Where it's like I got this company and that company and this project, and the problem is I have so many ideas and I'm such a capable person. Because I can do everything myself. Like if I wanted to make a whole album end to end with me producing and mixing and all that, I could do it. I don't do that for very clear reasons, but you know, it just allows me to be like, oh, I have this idea. I'll just get going on it. And then you just end up with a whole bunch of unfinished projects. Like the things you listed, some of them were finished, right? Like Robots with Hearts, we had like 20 records, but ultimately the album never came out. We had like a single that came out, and then I don't know, for whatever reason, I still to this day don't really know why that record never came out. But the producer and I like just stopped speaking at some point. Um, and anyway, so yeah, you end up with a bunch of like unfinished things because on top of having so many ideas, I'm also a perfectionist. And so I'll be like, oh, okay, let me work on this one again later. And then you kind of just forget about that because you got so many more ideas. So yeah, it's a gift and a curse because despite that, I still had a good amount of output, but I probably have like 500 songs I did in that era that never came out.
Wow. That's crazy, man. So is it for you? Is it like a thing where if you want something done right, I got to do it myself kind of thing? Or do you have a hard time like finding people you could trust to like really carry out your vision? Or
I mean, it can be that at times, but sometimes it's just like, oh, I have an idea. I'm excited about it. And then I just start working on it. And then, because like I said, I can do all the things. I don't have to like go find someone to help. So I'll be like, I'll get, 70% of the way on something and then be like, oh, what about this? And then, I just kind of forget about it. But the things that I do finish are the things that kept my attention that whole time. And I'm not trying to say like I have ADHD or anything. I don't necessarily know that that's true. It's just that I get like temporarily obsessed with things and then find a new thing to get obsessed with. So, like I've always scored really high on like IQ tests and shit like that. But I don't think that's it. I think it's just that, that temporary obsession. And I go so deep on things in ways that like the average person doesn't. And so when I do something, it tends to be a bit more outstanding.
yeah, you seem like a person that is like super creative. So like you kind of let that swing the pendulum, right? Basically, and then you go
Yeah.
into that direction, and then sometimes it doesn't go all the way to the end, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's been a lifelong process of just trying to improve on that, being like, okay, I'm going to just focus on this. But even right now, I got like 5 different projects I'm working on at the same time for music.
All right. Well, in 2005, you had the situation with copyright, right?
Hmm.
That led to an altercation. Before we go into this story, I just want to say shout out to Copy. That's my guy. He told his story and he said he did some fucked up shit and he deserved it. And looking back in retrospect, he should have just spoke to you that night. Man, roll a clip.
Like all that shit is because I was drunk. All that. Now I'm not saying like it wouldn't have turned out that way had I been sober, but what I am saying is had I been sober, I wouldn't have ever done any of that shit. You feel me? The sober me probably would have walked up to Mike what's his name? Mike Lee, what the fuck's his name? What's his name? Mike the one that owns undergroundhiphop.com.
I can't think of it.
Icon the Mic King.
Right.
Icon the Mic King. Had I been sober and I would have seen him at that thing and shit, I probably would have squashed it and said, "Hey, let me figure out a way to get your money back to you." The sober me is a way different person than like the drunk me and shit.
So take us through what led up to that situation.
Yeah. That's how you and I got in contact, because everyone was blowing me up with that video. So what happened was, and he was, pretty truthful, at least for all the things that he knew or understood about the situation. But it's actually kind of an extension of the Vinnie Paz situation. And the reason why is because I made this song. It was called All Hail. And I had a bar in there that was flipping the phrase holier than thou. And Holier Than Thou it was like his first solo single, I think. Great song, by the way. And so I reached out to him because I've been kicking the verses for my friends, and they were like, "Yo, are you dissing copyright?" And I'm like, no, I'm definitely not. And I didn't want to like have another problem with another rapper who is a little more, known than me or whatever. So I reached out to him. I think it was on AOL Instant Messenger at the time. And I was like, "Yo, I got this bar. I just want you to know I'm not dissing you." He's like, "Oh yeah, no, I don't think you're dissing me." And I was like, "Yo, how about you jump on the joint, do the hook?" And he was like, "All right, bet." And I sent him like $300 via PayPal. And and this part I didn't remember until I saw what he said. But I guess I sent him, I was making like CDRs back then, and I had like this enhanced CD that I made. You remember enhanced CDs where it would be like, you put it in your computer and this whole like multimedia experience. Anyway, so I sent him one of those, and then I also sent him, I think like a rough recording of the track or whatever. And actually, no, I don't even think I had recorded the track. I can't remember, but whatever it was, sent him the track, and he was supposed to do it. Some time goes by, and he hadn't done it. And then there was also all these rumors of people buying beats from him, and also, some other people around him, and they just weren't sending them. And then I was starting to get, nervous, like this guy took my money. And so then I think he had a show in New York, and I can't remember the venue. But I hit him up. I was like, "Yo, I'm gonna come through the show. We're gonna, chop it up, whatever. You're gonna let me know what's going on." And you know how a lot of times when, independent rappers before the show, they're like in the crowd saying what up to people, whatever. Copy came, he performed, and he left. Even though I had hit him up saying I'm coming, and he was like, "All right, bet, I'm gonna see you," or whatever. And then I'm like, "All right, cool. This dude is ducking me." And then I didn't see him again until 2005. So this might have been like 2 years that have gone by at this point.
Oh,
and then
shit.
I'm hosting the battle at Scribble Jam. And this is also the year that Il Mac won the whole thing. He actually went from the preliminaries and then through the whole thing. So like he wasn't a pre-selected person. Anyway, some dude is battling and he says, "Who want to see E-Dub get beat up like Copyright in the lobby fight?" And I was like, hold up. Like I shut the whole shit down. I was like, anybody that this is Copyright, they win as far as I'm concerned. And then I get off stage and then Pete comes up to me and he's like, "Yo, you want to go outside?" I was like, "I sure do." And then we get outside and there's pictures from this. There's 6 pictures from this whole situation. And at one point he's like, "Oh, let's go deeper into the parking lot." And I was like, "Nah, we're going to do this right here." And the reason why I remember this part so well is because someone did a whole reenactment. My guy, Swanberger from a group called Soliloquists of Sound, they did like a whole video reenactment of this shit. And anyway, so this was also shortly after the whole thing with him and Cage and Kamuteo. And where they had taken pictures of him during this fight. So I had a sidekick and I took it out because he's like swinging on me, but I guess he was like fucked up, like he said. And he was like, you know how like a T-Rex has like really short arms? So he was swinging and I guess his like depth perception was fucked up. So he wasn't like reaching me. And so I take my phone out and I started taking pictures on the sidekick. And then I'm like, fuck this. And I put the phone away, and then, I rocked him and he fell over. And then that one picture of that is from the moment where I hit him. And, yeah, that blew up. Like, it was a meme all over everything. Like, people were doing like the photo chops and everything. There was one where there was, he was on the turntables and I was dancing with a big woman or whatever. There was one where they were throwing, it was like I was throwing him down the, what you call it? The bowling alley. Like, this shit was all over the internet. And then it also kind of raised my profile a bit too. I remember I had gone to a Def Juk show afterwards, and I went backstage, and it was like Aesop Rock and Cage and LP and all these like Weathermen guys that, he had problems with at the time. And I remember Cage came up to me. He's like, yo, man, I just wanted to shake your hand. And, I thought I made it. I thought I was like down with these guys now and everything, because they were just showing me so much love. And yeah, then I got a few more tours and things like that. So, end of the day, that $300 I spent and then got back in the form of $400 was a great investment for me. And it also kind of killed that conversation about Vinnie too.
So, all right. So when you hit him, he falls down, and do you say anything? Does he say anything after? Like, how does that situation end?
Yeah, so I was heavy on my Philly shit, so I stood over him and I was like, early. And then Mr. Dale was like, go back in the club. So I went back into the spot. And there's a lot of stories about what people said Pete said after he got up or whatever, but I don't think there's any reason to dig into that.
Got you. So you said that you ended up getting 400 back?
Yeah, so what happened was Pete was working with this guy named Ryan. He had a record label called Man Bites Dog. He's based out in Virginia. And I had already been working with him. And, I think I had already this is before we did the big tour, but I had already been working with him on various things. And so I think Pete had a show in Philly, and I was like, yo, I'm going to come through and get my money. And then Ryan was like, nah, like, let's debt all this. I'll pay you back. And yeah, I was like, yeah, $400. And so he paid me.
All right. So when the video that I did with Copy came out, right, M80 linked you and me. And I remember getting the text and I was confused because it was a group chat and I didn't have your, number. And it was like, Panda meet iCON. And I was just like, oh shit. So basically you told me that people from like 10 years ago that you haven't spoken to were reaching out to you, because I don't think Copy ever spoke about this on camera before, like this situation.
So the only time that I heard him address it was in that song he did. It was called Confessions, because he mentioned my name, and so we sampled that shit. But yeah, so I don't think he had ever told this story. And again, I appreciate him for really owning it, because like, it seems like he's been through a lot of shit, and like I said, a lot of us weren't navigating this thing right. And I think I saw another clip from him where he talked about like how he would have wanted to work with Apathy and people like that. I get that. What I mean? Like, I was very elitist at the time. And like, if I didn't fuck with you, I would tell you, like, you're terrible. What I mean? That created all sorts of problems for me in my career. So I can completely relate to what he's saying there. But yeah, I mean, again, another person I don't have any ill will against. And he mentioned that he and I had spoken, after that. I'm pretty sure that's true. I think we spoke on like, Facebook Messenger or some shit. But I have no problem with the guy. Like, I just hope, he's cool and his shit is getting together. I've heard, various rumors about him too. So like, and I know he lost both his parents and things like that. So yeah, just on some straight up like human being shit. I hope he's doing good.
Yeah, no doubt, man. But what was your reaction when you first got sent the clip?
it's another one of those things like, oh, we still talking about this 20 years later. And then when I watched him, he was like, oh, I thought he was corny. And so first immediately I'm like, all right, well, you ain't have to say all that. But yeah, nah, I mean, it was kind of like nostalgic, right? And the timing is also pretty interesting too, because I got a lot more things going on in the music space. But really, this just speaks to the power of your platform. The fact that like people I haven't talked to in mad years were like, yo, check this out. So shout out to you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. But I'm hoping that we can actually get a real collab between you and Copy. You know, eventually I think that would be dope, would be a good full circle moment. You know, even though he said that you got your money's worth after you punched him.
Yeah, that shit was funny. I laughed at that. It's so wild, man. Like that amount of money, I was so upset about it. Like I spend that on sneakers now. You know what I'm saying? Like that's nothing.
So in 2006, you released the project Mike and the Fat Man LP, which was a collaboration between you and Chum, the Skrilla Gorilla from the Demigods, right? What was it like working with Chum?
So Chum and I had like a few different falling outs. Like there were times where it worked really well and we saw eye to eye on things. But even with Mike and the Fat Man, like there's 2 songs on that record that he didn't produce because we had like a falling out. I don't even remember why. But, you know, I think generally we worked really well together because it would be the sort of thing where like he would have a track. He'd be like, yo, I'd love for you to jump on this. Or later in our collaboration, it was more like I would go to his crib. We'd pull a record off the wall and be like, yo, let's find a sample. Cool. Let's build a track. So, you know, I think with him, he was with the Demigods, but like he was pretty underutilized. Like, you know, he was DJing for App, but App wasn't using his beats heavy at the time. And so, you know, me and like my fam were like, cool, well, let's do some shit. Cause I knew Chum through his affiliation with a crew called Johnny 23, I think it was called. And he was down with a rapper called Low Deck, which kind of overlapped with like, you know, I was down with like Mini Styles and all these guys. And so I think I'd actually ran into Chum at Bragging Rights. And then when I was back in Connecticut, I just reached out to him. I was like, yo, what's up? I'm like, you know, let's kick it. And yeah, he would always be like, yo, no one's using my beats. And I was like, well, cool, let's do some shit. I think the first song we did was a song on Intricate Spectrum called Fuck You Pay Me. And that shit was hard. And so, you know, we started working on Mike and the Fat Man with the idea of it being kind of like a concept album or whatever, where we're 2 cops. I don't even know why. I think it was because that old TV show, Jake and the Fat Man. And I was like, cool, we just be Mike and the Fat Man. Whatever. So we did all that. And we also just kind of loved a lot of the same stuff. You know, like really heavy into like the Wu-Tang sound, which is why I ended up getting Blue Raspberry on the record. We also had Killer Priest on the record, but ultimately those were the 2 records that he didn't end up producing. But yeah, I mean, we had a lot of fun. We, you know, it was a lot of us just like hanging out and making music, or, you know, going to the casino, or, you know, just doing fun shit. So yeah, it when I think back on that, it was a really fun time in my life.
And then you guys ended up doing oh, sorry, go ahead.
But what I will say, it was also, again, kind of weird because Demigods and Vinny's crew, like there was a lot of overlap there. So it was always kind of like, it felt like I was behind enemy lines or whatever to some degree. Even though, like I said, I knew Apathy from before. So I don't know. It was always just a kind of a strange dynamic.
But then you guys ended up doing 2 other projects too, right?
Yeah, we did. So we basically became a group. We were going to be called Kool-Aid. And we had another record that we did called Flavor Aid, because Flavor Aid was like the bootleg Kool-Aid. Mm-hmm. And it was meant to be, you know, the extra songs. But rather than doing like a mixtape, we did a whole album. And that was going to be the one that we had like features on. So Slug from Atmosphere was on there. Elzai was on there. And the idea was that we were just going to put that out first to kind of like pre-promote the main album. But then me and Chum had another falling out before the main album came out. And so it never came out. And you know, that was over. We had a song, it was called 80s Baby. And I was making fun of like all the whole hipster shit. And like, you know, I was calling out people like Spank Rock and MIA and shit. For what reason? Like, why was I doing this? You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't know those people. I didn't have any beef with these people. But like I said, I was an asshole. And anyway, Chum wanted to work with those people. And he was like, yeah, I'm about to work with them. So we got to change the record. I'm like, I'm not changing no fucking record. And he was like, nah, I changed the record. I was like, guess what? There is no record. So then, you know, we just didn't speak. We hadn't spoken for a really long time, but I ended up just like releasing the record for free. Like on, you know, my website or whatever. But it never got like a proper release. And it's really unfortunate because that was some of the best music I ever made. Probably some of the best music he's made too. And I think that record would have really blown up at that time because it was that sound where it was like, you know, a lot of people were making really big, like somewhat commercial sounding records. And we had like a disco record. We were doing like New Jack Swing shit, but it was still bars. And it was like, you know, I had like a cohesive theme and everything. I think it would have been a really big record. But in recent years, I've, you know, gotten back in touch with Chum and we've talked about doing records together. There's this one record that he and I had done in that era. It's probably like the single best iCON the Mic King record called Art of War with Self. And I'm going to Japan soon and it's got like, you know, kind of like that sound, like it samples some Japanese sounding records. And I was like, yo, we should release this. And so he actually just remade that beat. So we're probably going to re-record that soon and probably release it. But yeah, some of the best stuff I ever did, I did with Chum.
Do you regret like kind of having maybe a little too much pride or ego during that time that you guys had those falling outs?
I mean, all of that was co-constructed. Like it wasn't just how I was acting, but you know, I could only control what I was doing. And I'm happy I stood my ground on, you know, being asked to change a record, but I also could have reacted differently. I didn't have to say like, we are no longer doing a record. We could have done something else. Right. I'm still not great at compromising, but I definitely wasn't good at it then.
Oh man. But you know, it's cool that you were talking about Japan because, I think you've said in the past that Japan is like one of your biggest markets, right? Like they bought a lot of like your early work.
Yeah, my first 12-inch, I think we sold half of whatever I pressed in Japan. And, you know, if you look at the analytics for that music era, my old website, like there was always a lot of people coming from Japan. But, you know, I don't know what to expect when I go now because I've never been. And that's all like a generation of people ago. So we'll see what happens. But Japan is where I've always wanted to go, like ever since I was a little kid. And I'm finally getting that opportunity.
Yeah, man, that's dope, bro. So in 2006, you also got into a bicycle accident, and to pay for your medical bills because you didn't have insurance, you had to quote unquote get a real job, and it happened to be at a SEO agency, right? Can you talk about the accident and then the job?
Yeah, I mean, I was just riding a bike and the front wheel came off and it got stuck in like that pedal area. And so the bike stopped and I didn't. And I landed on my face and I like bit through my face. And, you know, it was so crazy because like nobody was around. And then this guy comes out of nowhere. Like, I don't know where this dude came from, but he just like helped me get up and go back to the crib and whatever. And so, yeah, I had to get a job. And that ultimately led to the career that I have now.
How How long was that recovery time for you for the accident?
It wasn't that bad. Like I had stitches. Like it really wasn't that big. It was just the fact that I had to go get stitches, and then like going to the hospital meant you had to pay. And you know, when you're a rapper who you only get paid when you tour or when you sell some CDs, like you're not prepared for that, right? Um, so I was like, oh, now I got this big, multi-$1,000 bill that I'm not going to have a way to pay. And so I was like, cool, let me get a job.
So what are we talking, like 10,000 or something like that?
No, not even that big. Probably like 3 or 5.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, when you have no other income, you know what I mean? Like that was a big deal.
All right. So then the job, how was the job at first?
I mean, I have a really strong work ethic, you know what I mean? And like, I just kind of threw myself into it, and it was really interesting, and it was a new thing for me to learn. And, I just really wanted to do a good job because I knew I was going to quit. So I got the job in August, and I was about to go on my first European tour in November. And I was like, cool, well, I'll just keep this job for 3 months or whatever, and that'll be that. And then what happened was I went to my boss, who was also, he was like, oh, I'm a musician. So he was like, cool. He's like, yo, I don't need you to quit. You can just take your laptop and work from the road. And I was like, what? That's a thing? Like, you can do that? So yeah, that's basically what I did. Is I went on that tour, and I would download people's websites, and then I would make adjustments to them while I was on the train, and then I would just upload them when I got to wherever I was going. And even if that only took me like 3 hours to do, it was considered a full work day. So like I'm touring and I have a full-time job, and I was like, holy shit, like this could be a game changer. And so I kept that job for, I don't even know if it was a full year, because something happened in the organization where things just weren't going well. And then like the guy that owned the company was just pissing me off, and I was like, fuck this. I'm just going back to being a rapper.
But that ended up basically shifting the focal point, right? From music, like you would still do features and some side projects and things like that, but you started to go towards digital marketing as like your new career path.
Yeah, I mean, I was still doing a lot of shows too, right? So like around that time, yeah, no, so I'd still continue to do shows. I think that Mike and the Fat Man came out within that window too. So I was still putting out records. And yeah, then we moved into like Flavor Aid and all that. So I was still actively releasing records until I got a job at this place called Razorfish in Philly.
Okay. And then for
so
Razorfish,
it was like 2010.
Razorfish, you were like, you weren't sure that you could get it as a full-time job, basically, right? So like you had to like go to New York to try to get like a job with the sister agency.
Yeah, so basically they didn't give me the full-time job. I was a contractor, and I only had like 24 hours a week. And so what I did is I just sandwiched it in the middle of the week, so Tuesday to Thursday, so I could keep doing shows. And I really liked that job. Like I was working with really smart people, and I was working really hard. And they still wouldn't offer me a full-time job. So I was like, all right, well, this is a network of agencies. If I go to one of the other ones and they want to hire me, these people will have to keep me. So I did that, and it happened to be a place in New York, and they offered me the job. I brought it back, and then Razorfish was like, well, we still can't do it. So then I moved to New York.
Your grandma actually put some pressure on you by calling you the chosen one, right?
It's my great grandma.
Yeah. And because like you said, your parents were the first like real successful ones from their family. So it was like some pressure on you to live up to that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just like the general expectation, right? Like when, first of all, I'm the first boy on either side. Yeah, and the grandchildren. And then like my parents were winners. So it's like, all right, well, you have to make something of yourself. And so that's also goes back to like why I was so protected, where I couldn't cross the street, things like that. And they wanted to make sure I always had opportunities.
So in 2014, you started your own company, iPullRank, which is a marketing agency. Talk a little bit about that, like what you do, the mindset of that time when you're stepping away from music.
Yeah. So, I mean, I hadn't really been doing much music wise. The last record I put out was 2009. Did a bunch of shows till about like 2011 when I moved to New York. That's when I kind of stopped doing shows, which is so ironic because like I did so much in New York without living there. And then once I got there, I'm like, I don't rap anymore. But anyway, so yeah, I started my own agency and I do what's called search engine optimization. So when people want to be number one in Google, or if they want to be number one in like ChatGPT, when someone is, talking about the thing that they do, they come to me. And I work with some of the biggest companies in the world doing this. I'm also a thought leader in the space, meaning that, I'm considered one of the best in the world at it. And I fly all over the world teaching people how to do things. Like I often come up with new methods of doing things, or tell people that like a way that everyone does it isn't the right way anymore. So, it's me. There's a lot of people that do this. But I'm considered top tier in those people.
Wow, man. What has the shift been like for you to leave behind music during those times to focus on this?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, being an indie rapper with any amount of success teaches you how to be in business because you're effectively running a business. The business is just you. So I've never taken a class in marketing in my life, but like I'm considered one of the best marketers there is in this space. So it's all because of me learning how do I sell a CD to someone that doesn't want a CD. You know what I mean? And, being able to apply that creative thinking, because again, I wasn't taught the basic way that everyone does things, has allowed me to really stand out and also get a lot of great results for people. But there was also, another cultural shift, right? Like when I first started working in these bigger agencies, they kind of looked down on me because I knew how to do the work. I didn't know how to like talk about the work. Like I wasn't a consultant, you know what I mean? I was someone that could get you results. So learning how to, do the whole business speak, right? Like, oh, you got to circle back and take a 10,000 foot view. Like if you don't talk like that, they don't consider you to have like an executive presence or to be strategic and things like that. So that was like the thing, the hurdle I had to get over in order to get to the point that I'm at. And it's also why I wasn't originally offered that job, that full-time job at Razorfish, because they were like, oh, you're super junior. But then once I got in there, everyone I worked with was asking me how to do things because like they knew how to write about the stuff that we did. They didn't know how to actually do it. You see what I'm saying? So that it felt like being an underdog for a long time because like I'm just now getting a job at like 30, you know what I mean? Whereas like people that graduated from school and they worked in all these different places, they're not really having to prove themselves, whereas I had to prove myself. And then there was this aspect of, like people that knew that I rapped, some people would hold that against me. So as an example, I worked at this agency and I was like the executive director of owned media. That meant that like anything SEO content was mine. Like all of it reported to me. And there was this one client that we had. It was like one of the hotel groups. She was on the phone with the president of the agency and he was excited. He was like, oh, I just hired Mike King. And the lady was like, oh, the rapper? I don't want to work with him. So like there was this bias against me because of what I came from. And, for a long time, I would kind of keep it low that I made music. But then some people knew as well, because it's like, that's when they met me, where I was at that intersection of it. And just navigating that was kind of difficult at first. But over time, I started to care less, because like once you're successful, what you gonna say to me? Like, oh, you're a rapper. Cool. I'm also a multimillionaire. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's really stupid backwards way of thinking too. Cause like if the man can do the job and get it done and do it better than a lot of people, then you're just handicapping yourself by not wanting to work with that. Who you know what I mean? Like even convicts get second chances too. So I mean, like, you can't give a rapper another chance to show that he could do more than put bars together. Like, come on, man. That's crazy. In 2016, Adam from undergroundhiphop.com announced the website was going to be shutting down effectively due to revenue losses. He ends up having a dinner with someone interested in purchasing it, and that someone ended up being you. Yeah. Although it wasn't announced at the time, and everyone was like, who's this hip hop artist that is going to be buying undergroundhiphop.com, right?
Yeah.
How did the whole situation come about?
Yeah, so when he announced that he was shutting it down, I took a look at the site just from an SEO perspective, and I saw that they got hit by an algorithm update, which was called PANDA, actually, and they never recovered from it. And I was like, oh, I can fix this. Like, this is just a content problem. So I reached out to Adam because I knew him from back in the day, and I was like, yo, like, what's good? Like, are you considering selling this? And so we had a number of conversations, and, there was some rough negotiation points at one point, and we got up from the table, and then we ultimately landed on something that I thought was really generous for him. Right. And, I got with a couple of my guys, and I was like, yo, let's buy this. Let's like recover it. It can be a platform for us. It can also like get us re-engaged in this. And yeah, we did that. And so 2017, we announced it. I'd taken it over. Adam was still involved. And, we had a pretty successful year. Like, it was the best revenue year that UGHH ever saw. And, it ultimately wasn't a viable business model.
Okay, so you were saying that basically there was like 3 different issues with undergroundhiphop.com when you bought it, right?
Yeah. One, there's a lot of debt. 2, the deal that I gave to Adam was too generous, and the business model itself was already very difficult to make profitable. So as an example, one of our primary distributors is Fat Beats. And obviously Fat Beats also is a record store. So we're directly competing with our distributor. And that happens in a variety of places, whether it's like Traffic or the bigger distributors, like they all have stores. And so let's use Fat Beats as the example. Fat Beats used to be in New York, but they moved to LA. So now we got to pay for the product to get across the country. And fast shipping from LA is really expensive. So like that's a baked in cost, but we also have to just be like, all right, well, we can't do overnight shipping from LA. We got to do 5-day. So inherently the delivery is going to be slower from us than it's going to be from Fat Beats. And then Fat Beats isn't going to give us a better price than they give themselves. So we're always going to cost more. So then you add in the whole aspect of like, for e-commerce, everyone expects the Amazon experience where you order something, it's there same day if possible. So it really just like drove the margins to be very razor thin. And then, like I said before, the big problem that they have was a content problem. So I was like, cool, let's invest heavily there. And the ROI from doing content, at least in the way we were doing it, wasn't enough. Like the way I looked at it was, why don't we build effectively like a magazine? And, we're just publishing a lot of great content from great hip hop journalists. But my idea had been like, you come to read the story and then you're like, oh, here's a story about MF Doom. Cool. Let me go buy some MF Doom records. But that just wasn't yielding what we wanted. So perhaps it would have worked better if we kept going with it and then the content had really compounded and yielded the result that I expected, but it wasn't enough in the timetable that we had. So really, we ultimately just ended up running out of money for it because, it was kind of a money pit and I didn't want to keep throwing money into it. So the ultimate goal is to relaunch it as more of a marketplace, because the other thing is that with more and more rappers doing direct to consumer and offering, I'm going to sign the record, I'll add all this extra shit, you're also now competing with all those rappers. So what I would rather do is have it so it's just another place that they can sell their stuff. They handle all the fulfillment for it. And then for me, it's just margin. And all we do is focus on building the audience, doing events, building content, things like that. And then we don't have to worry about fulfilling the product itself.
So what kind of content are you guys focusing on doing? Are you going to be doing YouTube? Or are you just mainly doing like written articles still? Or how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I think we're going to do a lot of things, native things on each platform, right? Like doing things for TikTok, doing things for Instagram, doing things on YouTube. Previously, it wasn't really about that because for me, we were just trying to drive people to the site because we were a record store. So it didn't make sense for me to like build on these other platforms. But if we're being this marketplace, then yeah, it does make more sense because then we can be like, cool. Let's grow this audience wherever it is. And then, some people may come from TikTok, some may come from whatever, but it was always the mailing list that did it for us, right? Like we would send out an email and have like $20,000 in sales in that one day. So really, it's going to be about building the audience, but bringing it back to that mailing list.
That's dope, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, bro. Whatever you guys end up doing with undergroundhiphop.com, you guys are just too much of a legendary name not to have more equity in this space that we have today. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and my goal was really to like build it up to something bigger than it ever was because, with there being so many platforms now, like TikTok, Bandcamp, so on and so forth, none of those spaces are for that scene. That scene technically doesn't really exist anymore because things are just so available that it's kind of like spreading people out. So there's not one place you go to find out everything that's popping for that sort of music. So I just wanted to like build the modern version of what UGHH used to be.
For sure, man. So in 2021, you released the iconic EP. It was a more mature, grown man version of you, right? Like, what was it like for you working on that album after you had taken such a long break from music?
Man, I wasn't sure how I rapped anymore. And, to my guy Haas, Anwar Hassan, also known as Haas Low, to his credit, like a lot of that record was a function of conversations that he and I had been having. And, he was around for most of the recording process. And, it was really about me like rediscovering who I am as a rapper now, like a grown man with kids, with success. Because a lot of what I would rap about back in the day, aside from like, my space shit or whatever, was like dealing with the struggle of not being as successful as I would want to be and things like that. And none of that was true now. So it's like, what does grown and successful me sound like? And, a lot of people that used to listen to me that heard this, they're like, yo, it's mad ill because it's like you're controlling all the power, right? Like, because, like I used to kind of over rap in my older raps. That I didn't mean for that to rhyme. And, like, because I just had so much I wanted to say. Now it's like I control the flow entirely. And it's clear that all that like technical skill is still there, but it's used in the right way. So it was just figuring that out, like, what do I rap about? What do I sound like? What do I rap over? And it was a really fun process. So what happened was I just went back to Philly. I was working out of J Black Studios owned by a rapper by the name of Baby Black, legendary MC and producer out of Philly. And I just hit him up. I was like, yo, I just want to book the whole week out because I got to get out of New York, out of my day-to-day context to connect with these records. And I had a bunch of stuff that I'd been working on over the years that I just been kind of sitting on. So we recorded most of that. And then I had a couple of tracks from Trox. And, you know, I think one of the first ones we did was the record called King's Ransom with Anwar Highsline on it. And, you know, I did that and another record. I was like, yo, I need to hit Trox. Like, he might just need to produce this whole joint. And that's what happened. He just like kept sending me records. So, you know, then I went back another week and just kept knocking joints out. And what I really wanted to do was drop the record before I turned 40. Cause like I said before, I could only be a rapper till I'm 40. So I wanted to like kind of complete that cycle or whatever. And we literally uploaded the record to Bandcamp at 11:59 the night before my birthday.
Yeah, you know, I want to touch on a couple of things, but I thought that it was dope what you were saying that like you would over rap before, because I've heard you talk about in this situation, it's like people thought you rapped really fast before, right? But it was because you had a lot to say, like you said, and you was putting a lot of like words in each bar. Here, like you were more controlled with the flow. You knew how to take pauses in certain areas and everything like that. And then you were saying that you put the album out before you turned 40 exactly, but it was a new process that you took because it was like you put it out, you let people hear it in a raw form, and then you kept adding to it. Like you added the features as time went on and updated the songs, basically.
Yeah. I was kind of taking that approach that Kanye was doing with his records, where he's kind of looking at it like it was a product, like it was a piece of software. And he just like kept updating it and whatever. So I knew it was going to take some time to get my features because I had to like navigate my network to make it happen. So like, as an example, Little Fame from MOP is on Time Out. Originally that hook was me. And when we recorded the song, we were like Goss, my engineer, he was like, yo, it'd be dope if Little Fame was on this. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. So I hit Jay Ronan. Jay Ronan set that up and I went to his crib. Fame was there. He was cool as shit. And, you know, we knocked that out real quick and it was mad fun. Like, I don't think I had a session with like, you know, like a known rapper. Like I've done records with other people before. But they weren't like, you know, MOP is like legendary. So, and it was just mad cool, like how fun it was, you know? And then with Musiq Soulchild, I hit my guy Mecca, Mr. Mech, who used to be on my expert opinion or whatever. And he was like, oh yeah, here's the contact. So we made that happen. That was in the middle of COVID, so I couldn't like go get with Musiq. Musiq Soulchild is one of my favorites ever. So that was real dope to make that happen. And yeah, then like we just kept updating it as those things came in. Then I put it on streaming.
Right. Yeah. And the cool thing about the Musiq Soulchild song, right, Made It, is that you basically you did it for your mom, right? The song for your mom, and you got an ad in Times Square. And you took a picture in front of it, like for Mother's Day, and you were like walking by several different digital ads that you had booked, and you kept on surprising your mom, basically.
Yeah, I have 4 ads. So there was one on 42nd and 8th. There's one in Bryant Park, and then there's 2 directly in Times Square. So the main, or it's not the main ad, but it's like one of the primary ads that people get. It's on the NASDAQ building, and then there's another one that's like off to the side there. So we did that and, you know, got the picture, surprised my mom. She was super excited. It was on Mother's Day. And yeah, it was a great thing to be able to do, you know, just to like give her kind of that moment of being recognized, like really big in public. And she just loves the song too. She loved it even before music was on it, but she also likes music a lot. So she was excited about that too.
Yeah, and it's cool that your kids were there too, for you to show them basically that, hey, like we can do this, like we can do anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think generally growing up in New York, you see a lot of things that, the average person doesn't, but also to be able to see like in this area that people come from all over the world, like we can be there. I think that's really going to set the bar high for what they accept out of themselves and their lives. And, I'm glad that I can set an example like that because some people just can't imagine things like without seeing someone else they know do them or whatever. And I'm happy that the baseline of what my kids experience is that. Because like these videos were played on TV, you know what I mean? I'll be like, yo, we're having a premiere. And my kids will like get hyped to see the video on TV that we were already watching on the TV. You know what I mean? But they're like, wow, you're getting played after these other videos and so on. So it's just telling them they can do anything they want.
Right. How was the conversation like with Musiq Soulchild?
I actually didn't get the opportunity to meet with him directly. It was all through management and everything. So, I sent him the record and he said he liked it and then he did it. And that was it. So I've never met.
So you didn't get to talk to him on the phone?
Nah. Everyone else I've worked with, I've at least spoken to them on the phone. So like I have a record, it's the remix to Time Out, and it's got Freeway, Beanie Sigel, Peedi Crakk. It's also got Reef the Lost Cause and Slaughter Rico on it. And so, when they recorded, like I was having a conversation with Beanie Sigel, you know what I mean? And it was so crazy. Cause he laid the record and I fell asleep and they called me at like 1 a.m. I was like, yo, you killed that shit. We got to do more of these.
That's dope, man. If you got on the phone with Musiq, I don't know, man, you might have had to hit him with the,
yo, some real shit.
You can cope. Yo, man.
On some real shit though. Like if I could sing, I probably would have never rapped and I probably would have done music just like Musiq does. So
yeah, I know. I've heard you say that before too, man.
Yeah, man. Like
for sure.
I just really enjoy the stuff that he does. So
So you have a website called bestrapperever.com, okay? And you've been proclaiming for a long time that you're the best rapper. I mean, from early interviews, I've heard you say it. So first, talk to us about why you've always thought you were the best and still think you're the best, and what is the website about?
Yeah, so it's actually really simple, right? Like I always feel like if you do something and you don't enjoy what you do as much as possible, you either should stop doing it or you should get better. And for me, as far as what I love out of rap, no one does it better than me. So from my perspective, I am the best rapper ever. And beyond that, I mean, I think also if you look at it from like a technical skill level, there is nothing I can't do with a rhyme. You know what I mean? Like you could put me against any rapper you love and I can do what they do. Whereas if you took, a lot of these rappers that you love and had me kick one of their verses, you'd be like, damn, Mike isn't as dope as he used to be. So that's kind of like my measuring stick. But the website was meant to be a bigger thing. It's just another one of those projects I never got around to finishing. But I wanted to do a whole like data science project to quantify what is the best rapper. And there was going to be like different tiers, right? Because like there are people that are like, no, Jay-Z's the best rapper because he's got the best stats and, he's got so many #1 records and whatever. Jay-Z is great. But, depending on how you measure things, you may not feel like he's the best rapper. So what I wanted to do is basically like collect a bunch of data, collect a lot of data on lyrics and performance of songs and, beats and all these sorts of things, and then come up with a criteria for how you would measure rappers and then just like publish a bunch of content around that. So it's just going to be a fun little, data science project.
For sure, man. It's a very subjective thing, right? Nobody ever has the same measurements and requirements for stuff. Some people they value flow more. Some people value substance more. It's just like there's so many different things. So a lot of times people get so offended by these lists and everything. But what the way that you're describing it in a quantifiable kind of way, that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I wanted to get a panel of people to contribute to it. Because to your point, there is also the subjective and qualitative measures that need to be looked at too. And so I would want a panel of people that would be considered experts that review rappers in that way too. And then you kind of build a whole algorithm around the quantitative and qualitative ideas to see if we can get to a consensus around what is the best rapper.
But I feel like also everyone's always a little biased from what era they grew up in, right? Because that's the music that was a part of their upbringing that influenced them the most and everything. So it's like you can't expect the new school people to know how Tupac or Biggie made other people feel back in the day or how big of an influence and impact. And it's also kind of like basketball where when you saw players back in the day do a move and everything like that, if you were there, it was a big deal when you saw it happen for the first time. But the game evolves over time, and newer players, they take that move, they elevate the game and everything. So if you're from the new school and you're looking back at Jerry West, and you might be like, well, that doesn't look as good as LeBron doing this or something, you know what I mean? So it's it came from that,
for sure.
It's
it's really similar to Jordan versus LeBron, right? There's people that swear that LeBron's the GOAT. There's people that obviously swear that Jordan's the GOAT and there'll never be another one and whatever. So yes, there's always a bias. It is always subjective. And, with music, there's of course that nostalgic value for anything that you grew up with. Like you're saying, if there's a song that, you kissed your first girl on, that's going to be your favorite song, your favorite rapper forever. Nothing is going to change that. So, that's what I'm saying. It's just a fun little project. I didn't expect that the world would adopt this algorithm and then that is just who the best rapper is. It's literally just going to be something for fun.
Right, for sure. Your start in music was at an interesting time, even though you were a bit ahead of your time with certain things, because I know you started going on the internet back in 92, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically when it was very primitive technology at the time. But when you started recording, people were still on analog, but some people started using computers, and there started to be different digital audio workstations. The microphone that you had was the Rode NT-1A condenser mic,
Hated it so much.
Right. And Chum would use Sony Acid Music Studio and SoundForge and everything. What is it like for you now to see the evolution of music technology with the recording and the accessibility of what used to be racks of equipment now be way much less and so much more accessible to the average consumer?
It's fucking amazing, man. I think it's incredible how accessible everything is. And, I also lived through that shift when people were like, I'm using Fruity Loops. And then people would be like, that's not real. You need an MPC. And I'm watching the same thing happen with AI right now. Everyone's like, you shouldn't use that. But it's just another tool. If you're using it right, no one's going to know you used AI. So I appreciate that things have evolved to this space. I don't love how easy it is to make a shitty song, but I love how easy it is to make a great one.
Yeah, but it's there was a little bit more gatekeeping before, right? Because there wasn't accessible to just everybody. And then now it's anybody could just kind of put something out there and blow up based off of entertainment value, not necessarily skill value.
Well, then there's still gatekeeping. The gatekeeping is just a function of how much does whatever you made resonate with a lot of people. So now it's like everyone can put anything out. So you got to figure out a way to stand out. So inherently, a lot of people don't make a dent in the same way that they couldn't before because they couldn't get to the person that could help them make a dent. So it's kind of like leveled the playing field, but it ultimately has yielded the same thing.
All right. Well, speaking about AI, right now, I feel like there's ways that you can use it responsibly. And then there's ways that, like, obviously, like, for example, now you can create a total AI artist and have Suno like create, you know what I mean, a song and not even write the words or anything like that.
Sure.
There's other ways that you can use it where you can, like, come up with a melody or just like an idea, but you still write the words and everything. And, there's various ways that you could use it. But I think the idea of just allowing AI to do everything is the problem, really.
The problem is the theft. You know what I mean? Because you got to you're building off of a whole bunch of stuff that came before it. And also there's those situations where somebody's full beat will come out, you know what I mean? And you're saying oh, I made this, but it's like literally someone else's beat. So that's the issue. Like, how you make things, does that really matter? Because when you look at a Dr. Dre record, right? He may not be the person that's physically making it. He didn't write the rhymes, but he made the record that you love. You may not like the idea of ghostwriting. You may not like the idea of producing, meaning him saying hey, turn that up, rather than sitting on the MPC, but you still like the song. So I don't think it matters how you make it. It mostly matters that it's dope and that you didn't steal someone else's shit. But even that's kind of problematic in hip hop because it's built on stealing someone else's shit in that we sample
samples.
Everything. So yeah, I mean, I don't get the argument against AI when before you just had, humans doing things for you that you were taking credit for. Now you just have a machine doing it even faster.
Yeah, but there's something to be said about a human being having the talent to play an instrument versus having the talent to write a prompt to tell something to play this specific instrument.
So how is that different than me telling a human being to play an instrument?
No, I'm saying though, for example, Dre, he's the orchestrator, right? He's I hear this little thing, please, add this little piece here, or, you know what I mean? He's putting it all together versus a lot of times for AI, you could write just a single prompt, just some words, and they put it together based off of the knowledge that they have though. So is it really the person that's writing the prompt have the same skill level as someone you can't equate those two things though?
I mean, I don't know that that's ultimately that different because you still have to guide the tool to make the thing that's amazing. You know what I mean? Yes, it has learned from all the people in the world that have played music to be able to do the thing you tell it to do. But I don't see that as much different as Dr. Dre telling someone to do a thing. You go into Suno and saying hey, make me a hip hop beat, and then you rap over it or whatever, is different than you going to Suno and being hey, play me a melody that sounds like this, and you hum it, and then it makes the track. That version is not much different from what Dr. Dre does.
I don't know about that, man. I gotta agree to disagree. But what about the situation with Timbaland, right? There's so many artists out there. Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do what Timbaland did. And Timbaland is a legend. He's made so many records that I love. I would love to work with Timbaland, but him with the guy's name is K Fresh or whatever, where he just straight stole his beat. I heard recently that Eric Sermon did something very similar. Don't do that shit. That's not cool.
Well, I was talking about the artist that he has now. It's an AI artist, and I'm saying that there's so many artists out there that would love and is capable, talented, that could work with a Timbaland and make amazing music. But why instead invest in something that is, you know, not real in the sense of that way, and when there's so many artists out there that could do that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't love that, but I also think that's like the future of this technology because, you know, I always think about this idea of like movie stars. We don't have a lot of classic movie stars left. You got like Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio, a handful of people, right? And the limitation for Hollywood is that those people are human beings that can only do so much shit. They can only memorize so many lines. They can only shoot so many days. And I think Hollywood would prefer it if they could have, you know, more movies that are like Fast and the Furious, where you have like 52 fucking sequels. And they are going to go in the direction of leveraging, you know, fake actors and then building those into movie stars. So I think that it's like an inevitable way that this stuff is going. And it's also what, you know, like the writer's strike was about, like pushing back against that sort of stuff. But yeah, I think down the line, it's just gonna happen. But I don't like it.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it, how it's happened on Instagram already with like these AI models and stuff like that. Like dudes is just like following these girls that aren't even real and like basically being in love with something that's not even real. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just, I guess that's kind of like the era that
you were never gonna meet that woman anyway.
Right. I guess so. So as time has gone on, we've noticed it has become normalized to buy views, likes, bot comments, and you specialize in analytics and content strategy. Can you talk about how that affects your YouTube channel, Instagram, Spotify, like the long-term effects of buying these kind of things versus it growing organically?
Yeah, I mean, when people buy bot traffic, it's really clear and obvious because, first of all, most of it doesn't come from the United States. It's typically like, you know, some other country that has a bunch of bot instances set up and they send a bunch of traffic or a bunch of likes or whatever. You'll often see, you know, a lot of the comments don't make any sense, like that sort of thing happening. And so when you look at somebody's analytics, you typically see consistent growth or something else, right? And that something else could be a huge spike and then a huge drop off. That's typically what the bot activity looks like, because someone is buying it for a short term and then they stop paying for it and then it disappears. And so, one, these platforms are monetizing based on advertising. So if they're selling ads to a bunch of bots, no one wants to buy the ads. They want the ads from actual people. And, you know, there's a lot of like fraud things that are put in place to identify this. And also, you know, like people don't want to advertise in places that don't make sense. Like they want to advertise for very specific audiences. So think about like YouTube watch time, right? You can fake that too. But again, they want a higher watch time so they can show more ads to an actual person. And so if they see that, like, you know, no one's moving their mouse, or, you know, they've got like 5 different instances of YouTube open at the same time, which is something that bots do to scale, they can track all that. Everything is trackable. And also, if you're not like a logged in user, they kind of automatically discount that view as well. So there's so many ways to detect this stuff, and it's getting even easier to detect with AI. It's not even worth doing. Like, you might as well just spend the money on an actual ad or a bigger piece of content, or to work with an influencer so you can get real traffic that looks like real traffic, so that all the incentives that you want out of these systems, you actually get. But I also get the reason why people like buy fake followers and so on, because you got to look like you made it for people to believe in you and then continue to follow you. So it's definitely a tricky thing to do, because you have to you can't start from zero.
Right. So like that's what I was about to say. I feel like everything is such a facade now. It's almost like the new version of the rapper on the come up talking about, I got my big mansion and Rolls Royce, and hopefully if I rap about this, I'll eventually get it type of situation. You know what I'm saying?
So you make it.
And it's like kind of like you'll visit. Right. You'll visit someone's Instagram page and they got a blue check, 100,000 followers, but you go to their Spotify and they have 1,000 monthly listeners.
Yeah, but you can fake those too.
Right. But then like you'll have like videos with like 200,000 views, 5,000 likes and 100 comments. And it's like, bro, that's the dead giveaway that it's fake. It's not real. And people really think that that's like, this is viral. You know what I mean? So from your experience though, does it really bring forth like organic views when people see a video that has that? Like, will people actually click and think, oh, this must be good because they got these numbers?
I don't know that people think that way. I think it's more like, someone sent me this video, let me check it out. Or, it like pops up as the next recommended video or whatever like that. I don't think people are like, oh, let me look to see if this has views before I look at it. I think that's more how people measure whether or not what you've done matters. So like, I was working with one of the big three record companies when we dropped Iconic, and I was like, yo, connect me with someone, on the A&R side. And I had a whole series of conversations with this guy, and he was like, yeah, your music's good, but like, where are your numbers at? So they're like, we can't do anything with this until you get the numbers up. So it's like your ID. Like, you can't get into the club until you've already kind of like shown that there's value or demand for what you do.
Got you. So in the end, you recommend not going that way? Like you recommend like spending the money on ads and growing organically?
Yeah. Like if you are, let's say you're a rapper or a musician of any kind, what I would recommend that you do, 3 things. 1, run ads on your own shit. 2, invest in features. 3, invest in playlists. Those are the things that work. Like with Iconic, for me, it was largely me testing to figure out what actually works here. And those are the 3 things that I saw that stuck. Like the Times Square ad was great. Like I love that I could do that and have my mom have that experience. It did nothing as far as, yielding more people checking my stuff out. And really, when people do those billboards, it's really more about getting the picture and posting it on Instagram so you look more official. I probably would have gotten more value out of taking the picture and running ads to that than getting the billboard itself. So, but yeah, it's really those 3 things: ads, playlists, and features.
I mean, shit, now you could use AI to make it look like you had that actual ad in Times Square if you just want it for the picture though, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you did something like so Spotify has the big, really long ad in Times Square. I'm assuming that's of value because they spend a lot of money on doing those. But, for the ads that I did, it didn't really do much specifically for growing streams or anything.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about so many artists now moving to content creation and podcasts now, and making music is no longer at the front? It's just the platform, the stepping stool, basically, to other areas of money.
I think it's a good thing, but it's not necessarily what I'm interested in. I'm tired of like listening to dudes complain in gamer chairs and like try to tell me like what's cool and what's not. Like I like to have the experience in the world and figure it out myself. But I appreciate that a lot of people really, really enjoy that. You know what I mean? Like they get like the aspect of something that, you know, they weren't getting before. And I love that it's been an avenue for success for people that didn't have a lot of success in music, like Joe Budden, who I personally believe is a top 50 all-time rapper. But, you know, he didn't get the level of commercial
Yeah, but you
success.
can't beat him in a race, though.
Oh, yes, I can.
Oh, no, you can't.
Yes,
you
I
see,
can.
he never accepted your challenge.
He did not.
Never accepted your challenge, so you know.
Well, I probably can't beat him now because he's definitely in better shape than I am. But back then, I definitely could have beat him. In any event,
he still smokes, though, right? So you might have that.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I appreciate that there's like a new way for people to remain relevant, create something new, and, you know, live beyond that half-life of being a rapper. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's a good evolution of all of this. And it's also so ironic because, again, they spend so much time calling us internet rappers, and now we got people like Nori and Joe Budden on the internet doing podcasts.
Well, I don't know if you could really even say that about Joe Budden, because Joe Budden embraced the internet so early on. But I will say that a lot of rappers were being like, oh, that's not real. Y'all just on there. And you know what I mean? And then eventually they did embrace it because they had to. Right.
Yeah, there was no choice. Like, you know, when Drake was considered the biggest guy, I guess he's technically still the biggest guy. He's used the internet the whole time. You know what I mean? Like SoundCloud and having his radio show and all that sort of shit, being heavy on IG and all that. Like, that is the only way to do it now.
I will say, though, the internet has really made everyone feel like their opinion matters so much more now, right? And a lot of rappers didn't like that in the beginning because it's like, who is Joe Schmo from so-and-so down the block, and why do they have such a strong opinion about my album or how I should do things? And, you know, but then like now it's like everybody's monetizing content to be able to share their opinion. The thing that I don't like is when you have rappers retelling history in a way that's not accurate. You know what I'm saying? So like it's like it's messing up hip hop history, like, and it's like blatantly, like, you know, like that's the part that I really don't like. But other than that, I think it's cool for you to find a second career, like the way you said, like Joe Budden did, right? Like he found a different lane, and I think that's dope.
Yeah, word. I just wish that the you know, like the journalistic integrity was maintained on more of this stuff. And I'm not calling out anybody specifically, but like, you know, sometimes I watch these guys, I'm like, yo, can you just shut up and let them answer the question?
I know you're talking about Nori, so. But you know what? Like when YouTube first started, right? It was like you could have a clip about an artist talking about their new album, and it would get views. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like like just like regular type of content like that. We were like, people were consuming it. Now it's like only the most salacious things get those major views, right? And I think that, and I can't blame it because at the same time I play into that too. But it's like our interview right now, you see, like I've covered your story in depth. Like we've had so many different conversations, right? Like I'm not stupid. I know like the salacious part is going to sell the interview, but it's like always my hope that if you watch that, maybe you'll watch like the beginning part about his life and how he came up, and you know what I'm saying? Like, so like that's what I always hope. But
and some people will. It'll be like 20% of the people will watch the whole thing, but 80% will be like, oh, he got in a fight with Vinnie Paz. Oh, he punched copyright. Like, I get it. Like, that's just good marketing. You know what I mean? And the reality is that people don't react to let's just call it what people would call like the boring parts of who anyone is. They really just react to the emotional things like, oh, there was a fight, or, oh, they had a conflict with this person. And that's just human nature.
But you know what I will say, though, is this is why I love the underground crowd so much, is because more of the underground scene will consume those parts of the interviews because they care more about the artist. They're more invested, right? Now,
Right.
if I'm interviewing some bigger name artist or something like that has a mainstream audience, a lot of times they won't watch that part. They'll just watch the controversial part.
Yeah.
And that's what I've noticed too. And that's what I really appreciate about the underground scene, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mike. I know that you're gonna be having a tour in Japan and everything like that. What else you working on? Because I just saw you with M80, Corrupt, Master Killer in the studio, right? You know what I mean? What you got going on?
Man, I'm cooking up a lot of stuff. So I got a couple records with Scott Storch. I got a lot of collabs that are in the works. I'll be dropping something by the end of the year. I'll be dropping the Scott Storch record probably at the top of the year. And then I'm going to be dropping something every month, you know, and then quarterly it'll be like 3-pack, EP, 3-pack, and then album. And I'm just trying to make my dream records, right? Like there's a list of people I want to work with, you know, some of the legends in the game. And now that I have the resources and can access those people, I just want to make it happen and, you know, just do the albums that I've always wanted to do.
How'd you end up linking up with Scott Storch?
I connected. So what happened was I threw my first SEO conference earlier this year and we had an after party that was a concert. So we had Busta Rhymes, you know, headline. And I was one of the acts as well. And I was like, yo, I'm too old to be like winning over crowds. So what do I have to do to make it so I don't have to win over a crowd every time? And I was like, oh, I need a hit record. And so I hit up M80. I was like, yo, I want to make a hit record. Who do I need to talk to? And he was like, oh, yeah, I can connect you with Scott Storch. So he connected me with Steve Lobel, who then connected me with Scott Storch. I went down to Miami and we made the magic happen.
That's crazy, man. How many records you guys got?
2.
Okay. Dope. And when are we going to be hearing those?
That'll be at the top of the year. I think so I got one record that's kind of like a dance record with him. And then I got another one, which is just like you know, bet on myself sort of situation, like it's talking about what it takes to get to where I'm at. So I think we're probably going to do the dance record first because I feel like that's going to be the biggest record possible.
Fire, man.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, I just want to thank you for your time, bro. Is there anything else you want to say to the people before we go ahead and wrap it up?
Man, I mean, listen, I think a lot of these stories that we tell is about, and I don't think people really get this context. You're talking about people that were like in their early 20s trying to figure shit out. And now we're all grown-ups, you know what I mean, doing different things. So I think we all got to like respect the growth that all of us have gone through and recognize that we're not those people anymore. You know what I mean? You can't judge people about who they socked when they were like 22, you know what I mean? So yeah, just check on what people are doing now because everybody's doing something interesting with the growth that they've had in their life.
I think that it's important when you hear these stories to take it for what it is, right? You're getting an answer to something that you may have wanted to know for a long time, for the past 20 years or whatever, right? So you get that historical context, that clarity, but try not to judge people so harshly in a sense, right? Like you're saying, because everybody was young, everybody was dumb at one time. Everybody takes L's, everybody does fucked up things at one point. It's just what it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's not reflective of who you are now.
Yeah, it's so funny because like, you know, we talk about these 2 fights or whatever that I was in. I've been in mad other fights, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's so interesting that like, you know, people define me through those things, but like, that's such a small time in my life, you know what I mean? So it's so interesting.
For sure, man. Appreciate you, Mike.
Of course. Thanks for having me.